let me check. Let me check the YouTube because on my end, you and see it's actually works. Okay, I just need to know if this actually looks good. Why don't we laugh? I just want to see.
It should be like a
Finally.
15-second delay.
Okay, yeah, thank goodness. Okay, but okay, we're here to talk about my personal favorite anime, Monster by Naoki Urasawa, and that stream on box right there.
All right.
So Monster. The story follows Dr. Tenma, a Japanese doctor who lives in Germany, lived in West Germany in the 80s. This was a fictional story. Just go with it. In the 80s, who saves the life of a young boy who was shot in the head. Only for that young boy to turn out to be a serial killer. Then turned out to have been serial killer and continue to be for the next 10 years, and then until Tenma by chance meets him again. Meets him again while he taking care of one of his minions. If you know what I'm saying. And Dr. Tenma realizing he threw his life away. His life away on the city say to save the life of a young boy that wound up being a monster, as the title says. He has to undo his mistake and goes on a long quest for that.
And not only has to redeem his mistake, he has to basically reclaim his name because for most of the show, everyone thinks he did it.
Yeah,
that he killed all these people.
Yeah,
which I thought was really cool because it's not just like this guy, doing research in his spare time to try and find him. It's he's running away from the cops and trying to stay away from anybody who might know who he is. And he usually does get noticed at some point because a Japanese man living in Germany tends to stand out.
Of course.
And they do bring that up a fair bit in the show, which I like. They don't shy away from it.
And it's clear from animation because the animation just show that the art style is very quite more realistic than most anime.
Yeah, it's very realistic in terms of even the architecture and the design of the characters and even the cars and guns that they use in the show is just perfect for not only what they are, but also that they are period accurate and what a lot of people would be using at the time. Which I think
most
the main
show set in the 90s.
I think the main it takes place in 96 to 97, I think. So it's really cool. And interesting to see from an anime, especially an earlier one, in that usually they don't do that close. They'll just do like a generic shape of like a sedan or something like that, or a pistol. So it's interesting to see that he actually went to this level of detail.
And look, and the show, the show's animation style. You can tell that Tenma was Japanese and is in Germany, where everybody else looks different from him. Like,
there are a couple interestingly drawn characters that almost look Chinese in a way that are supposed to be German, but there's also, I think a couple of Vietnamese and a bunch of Turkish people in certain parts of the show.
Yeah, I mean they all
but they all look very accurate. And most of the Germans and Czechs look almost like every German or Czech person I've ever met.
So yeah, okay, let's get through the characters. I'm gonna share screen. Yeah, I'm on this computer this time. Finally got.
we have the technology.
getting to the characters, we have wait, this is the wrong one. I think this reverse how it's played. Okay, what? Ah, getting characters, we have Dr. Tenma himself.
Is really a likable guy. He's just like,
I know. That's what I felt.
He's just like kind of an affable, nice guy most of the time. Like, just wants to do his job well and live his life, and not really, and just go about his business.
Of course, and of course, and he had the greatest the greatest thing he ever wanted. He's married to the director Heinemann's daughter.
Yeah, I think they were engaged, but they were like, he's like engaged, this close to being set for freaking life and being the director of a hospital, and his ticket's punched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And but then a Turkish woman reveals that her husband was killed. Was it a Turkish woman?
Yes, she was Turkish.
Yeah, her husband died because he refused to save him. He stayed operating on opera singer
because he was told to do it by the director.
Of course, because Heinemann only cares about money and money, so he goes say the most famous people, money and status. So he cares about saying the most famous people, at any given time. So most rich and famous people at any time. And then when the mayor has heart problems, has heart failure, and is brought onto a table, a hospital on an operating table at the same time as a little boy was shot in the head. And one great thing about the show Monster is that they leave them that was a great mystery that the show kind of intentionally guides the audience to ignore. That's a great technique storyteller. They intentionally guide the audience to ignore that mystery.
Yeah,
even though that's kind of important. How did the Liebers get murdered? How does a little boy get a bullet in his head?
And you don't find that out until very late in the series.
Not very late. Not very late. Very early. But
you never actually see the correct sequence of events until very, very late in the show.
Mm-hmm. No, we do get to figure out what happened though, or late, very early on though. What really happened?
Yeah, I mean, you get to see the event, but it's actually out of sequence and makes it play out much different than what supposedly truly happened.
Well, that's it. And then Dr. Tenma decides to save his life for this young boy because he came in first.
And all because basically he had that encounter with that crying woman in the hallway who'd asked why her husband had to die. And he decided to do the right thing and save a little boy rather than, an old guy who had heart trouble, probably because he drank too much, ate too much, and smoked too much. Poison. Yeah, I mean, not even that, just like liver, just a lifetime of heart problems from probably smoking, drinking, and eating too much.
Or eating wrong kinds of foods. That kind of happens.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah.
So and he made in what 99.9% of the cases would be the absolute correct decision.
Except in this case, the kid awakens and is quite creepy. Also, Director Heinemann. I feel about Director Heinemann, by the way, because he was a douche. To say douchebag, say at least.
He was an absolute asshole. He had it coming.
And so was his daughter, Ava.
Later on, she kind of redeems herself, but we'll get there.
Yeah, later on. Speaking of
that, at this point in the series, oh man, she is a complete piece of work.
and then after Johan's life is saved, poison candy kills Director Heinemann and all the high ups at the hospital.
Leaving only Tenma, who had just been removed from that track basically by Heinemann over this decision.
Yes,
as the next in line, which puts him immediately in the crosshairs.
No, what's called Inspector Lumgate, this character here,
to immediately start investigating because he's the most likely suspect. It's
yeah.
like, all of your seniors just died and you just took over a major hospital. How convenient for you. I think he even says it in that way too.
Yeah, this is Inspector Lumgate. Yeah. And Inspector Lumgate's a fascinating character. He's almost like a machine rather than a person. Like honestly, I felt like he's like a detective robot. It had the reveal that he had a wife to remind me that he's a human.
Yeah, pretty much. Like that's the entire reason that you even see his family in the show is to see his focus and also what it does to his family life.
Oh yeah, because and we get to that. We'll get to that later. But this guy, always types.
The way they portray him is straight up autistic. Like, because he remembers everything.
And he always taps his fingers.
Yeah,
because it helps him remember. Like he's typing on the keyboard.
Which the funny part is, like, he's apparently been at this a minute by 1984 when this happens. Which a computer keyboard would still be fairly new for these guys. So having that habit is kind of interesting.
Probably was using typewriter before then.
That's a very different typing style. If you've ever used a manual typewriter, it's not this, it's this.
Yeah, I know.
Because you have to actually force that key down. This is a mechanical switch rather than just a little push pressure pad. But yeah, it might be a recently learned skill too.
Look, and
it also looks less ridiculous on camera than a cartoon character doing this all the time.
So this, and then so we get this guy called 10 years later. We get this guy called Alf Junkers, who's on the run from somebody. And gets injured by a car, and has to be rushed to the hospital. And Tenma operating this guy. Then come to find out when he feels like confessing, the security guard's dead from the police officer's dead for poison candy.
Was it a poison candy or did he get shot?
No, poison candy.
Because that's a recurring theme, and also guys just getting shot out of nowhere in this series is a freaking meme.
When Tenma chases Alf Junkers, we get when he finally meets Johan again for the first time in 10 years and revealed that he killed all poison all directors hospital.
And you really learn just how creepy this kid is, because he is just like the voice. Kudos to the voice actor for this guy.
The English dub, the voice acting was really good for especially for 2004 standards.
Yeah, and he was just like, very even, very polite, but extremely sinister in the way he delivered things and the way he said things. It was just like, okay, I just pooped a little. Because he is just the most menacing thing, and he's not very intimidating.
Physically,
yeah, he's not very intimidating. It's the eyes.
Yeah, it's just from the physical appearance, he's just a 20-year-old blind guy.
Actually, kind of a pretty boy. Looks like kind of.
I know, kind of a pretty boy. I know.
But at the same time, those eyes are like, yeah, no, don't treat him like that.
Yeah, by the way,
you will not like it.
Yeah, pretty boy villains are somewhat common in anime, so I just
But it's kind of not for the same reason as in this case. Even though he is fairly narcissistic.
Well, yeah, but it's just his physical appearance, though. It has nothing to do with his personality at all.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, and they, and Ava, I'm going to put up. Ava has not been good since breaking up with Tenma, to say the least.
No, she's kind of been a wreck.
Yeah, so I mean, she's alcoholic. She's a gold digger. Like, she's an alcoholic gold digger. That's pretty much what she was,
and is for most of this series. Either that or just bitter and vengeful gold digger, alcoholic. Because it just adds negative traits for like the first probably 2/3 of this series, really, until you finally start to see her other side.
And so it's finally starts to change.
Yeah, and like kind of realizes she's being an idiot, and
not really being an idiot, just being a bitch.
Yeah, and also the fact that a lot of people want her dead by the midpoint of this series for various different reasons.
I mean, that's kind of what happens when you spend 10 years being a cunt like her.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's like, but somebody wants me dead. Oh, that's a shame. Who do I send a congratulation card to? And I think it's a great credit that Tenma never really stops helping her. Even though
any other guy would. Like that's what makes Tenma such an admirable character. It's like, any normal guy would.
Yeah, he would just be, any other guy on this, any real human character would have been like, absolutely not, get away. It's like, you are bad news. I want nothing to do with it. But no, she's an interesting character, especially given her motivation and like, especially like the first few episodes where just before her father dies, she breaks it off with Tenma because he basically disobeys her father and is no longer going to be the director of the hospital, and therefore she wants nothing to do with him because she's a gold digging piece of trash. And yet she still shows genuine remorse for it, even at that point. I think that's why she drinks so heavily. After her father dies, is that she not only lost her father, then she lost the one man she thought she could count on again.
Yes.
And she told the other one to piss off. So she was kind of up the creek without a paddle on that one, and I think she just spiraled down. But no, I forgot
to put before of Nina. And then I forgot to put before of Nina when immediately after the plot about when we learn that Johan's serial killer, the next plot is about him trying to track down his sister Nina. And Anna, really is Anna, but
actually the funny thing is we never know what either of their real names is.
I know. At the end, that's to keep that a mystery. That's best kept a mystery.
Which I do love that he's the only one who knows. And I think he tells Nina, but you never see it.
Yeah, but like,
but he does tell Johan.
At the same time, real names don't really matter. So,
true.
Not to mention.
I'm not going to do the Shakespeare line here because that's been done to death. The whole rose by any other name. It's like, it's a Shakespeare line. It sounds profound.
And we're going to avoid talking about that plot twist still later. Involving involving a certain book. Now Nina's character is she has traumatic amnesia or something. What's it called?
Well, I mean, she has straight up amnesia. I don't know that they differentiate by type, but it's usually caused by either physical or mental trauma. And and boy, did she have some mental trauma.
Especially after discovering your brother's a serial killer when you're a little girl.
Yep, and having later on learning later on that she was not as innocent in that shooting as she may have believed. But we'll get there because that's a huge rabbit hole at the end of the series. That's fucking incredible. I love it.
I mean, she already experienced messed up stuff before then, but learning your brother's a serial killer was found nail in the coffin.
Yeah, and basically just like she could live with everything else and like kind of repress it and just try to move on, and then that all happened and she just broke. Which
so
that happens when you're, I think they're what, 10?
They're both 10 at that time.
Yeah, and realize that your brother's a monster, literally. We're not using the name of the show on purpose here, folks. That's why they named it that. Because that show, that the words monster and devil constantly come up in this, especially towards the end. And not always directed at the main characters either. There's other people in this who could really be considered the title character.
Yeah. And Tim, Timur and Nina's relationship as we, because they both on the same path basically. They're both trying to kill Johan throughout the show
and find out what the fuck is going on. Because Tenma has no idea. He's been dumped in the middle of this thing and has had no clue until Johan showed up again. And Nina doesn't remember a goddamn thing of it, and is an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old college student.
20.
Oh, that's right. She's 22.
20th birthday. Both got same age, twins.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, she's a young girl, has no idea of any family other than the one she's living with, the Fortners, and gets this all dropped in her lap. But
and also they get killed, as well as Tim. Tim also brought the guy who worked at newspaper company in there as well. Mr. Langer.
I have to go real quick, but I will be right back. Give me 1 second.
Okay. So yeah, when Mr. Langer died, I wasn't. Well, it did disappoint me. This is obviously, a lot of these side characters, you want them to get better, but it's not as depressing as the one that comes later. Yeah, this story is quite decompressed, by the way. It's not just the anime. The manga was like that too. Yeah, because quite often throughout this series, Monster, we get these side characters. There's a lot of side characters, by the way, and they are really fleshed out. And the ones who are sympathetic, you really want them to either survive or get better if they have some kind of flaws. And let's just say not all of them manage to survive. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a show about a bunch of people trying to take down a serial killer. It was on a mission of genocide.
All right.
So, and what makes it worse for Tim is that he brought another innocent civilian in there, a guy who worked at a newspaper company. And as well, Mr. Langer, who had smoking problem.
And basically, like, that's like a recurring theme throughout the show is other people get involved either by accident or one of the characters gets them involved, either intentionally or otherwise. And they just, as soon as they figure out even remotely what's going on, they just end up dead.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, they and Mr. Langer and both the Fortners, they just dead. Yeah, they just dead. Also,
very quickly too.
And we learned that Dirty Cops did it because Dirty Cops working for Johan. Johan has minions. He's not an ordinary serial killer,
and not just a couple either. But he has like an entire. I mean, he could probably have done what actually one of the groups wanted him to do, and basically taken over Germany if he wanted to.
But he doesn't want to take over. He wants to destroy it. As we learn, it's kind of obvious though.
That doesn't mean he's not manipulating other groups into thinking that's what he wants. It's one specifically that we'll get to.
And it makes sense because way on the show we learned that he has mafia connections, my organized crime connections. So it makes sense how he got all this money in his adolescent years, and how he's able to have connections, these kind of connections.
Not just mafia connections, political ones as well.
Yeah, mob and political connections too. So it makes sense how he's able to get all these minions on his evil plan and get money too. And
a sociopath connecting the mob and politics? Where have we heard this story before? Oops, sorry, I forgot we're on YouTube. Never mind. Nothing happened. It's fine. Everything is fine. Believe what they tell you. Continue.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, by the way. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, trust me.
That was one of the biggest gut punches of the show. Like the dirty cops are working for Johan. Like, wait, he has minions. He's not just a regular serial killer. That completely.
He has parts of the government and the underground both working with him. It's like, what?
Yeah, they not very high up at the government, but still.
Some of them are higher up than you'd think, like city officials, like people who are running for like federal office and stuff like that. I don't really know how the German parliamentary system works all that well, but I think they mentioned a couple members of parliament in the show that are either secretly or somewhat working with him, whether they know it or not.
Exactly, but they know. I'm talking about people who work for him.
Yeah, they're mostly gangsters and thugs and random other trash that he just manipulates.
Yeah. So these the quick cops killed them because Johan couldn't be there at that moment. Yeah, that was taken care of. Which is supposed to be his sister, because Johan kind of has a crush on her.
Yeah, the relationship between Johan and Nina is interesting. And you'll find out why later. Much later, like towards the very end of the series.
We also and when we meet Ava again after that, it's like she's a pathetic mess, and Loon Game is just is alien. Because Ava frames Tenma. Ava's the one who frames Tenma for the murders.
Yeah, because she blames him.
Yeah, she blames him for the murders because she wants to see his life be ruined.
Not just she blames her for the murders. She had just tried to get back with him and he rejected her.
Yeah, so she tried to get back when she rejected her. So she decided to frame him. And she says, and she the one who frames he's guilty for all the murders. So she really caused most Buster Show's plot to happen.
Yep.
So because she's a bitch. Like,
yep. There's no way to sugarcoat her character. She is an absolute bitch. The entire fucking first 2/3 of when you meet her, just like, oh, could somebody kill this broad already, please?
Yeah. And Loon Gay, of course, goes along with it. Because, well, he doesn't really understand people, as we see. He's very alien.
The way he works and the way his character works, you almost see him as kind of the bad guy. At
almost,
first, or a bad guy.
Yeah, almost, but he's basically like a robot almost. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what he's assigned to. He's gonna put all his A game into it.
Yeah, he's literally just like, okay, this is my case now. I'm going to put everything I have into this and not stop for 5 minutes until I catch this guy.
Look. Even then, he didn't care when his wife and daughter walked out on him.
Because he didn't react to it.
His daughter was pregnant, and his wife was cheating on him. And he didn't give a damn. He just, I don't care.
Which, knowing female psychology like I do, is why they did both of those things.
I mean, I mean,
That's why his daughter got knocked up, and that's why his wife was cheating on him, because he just wasn't there.
No. Why one of his wife like? Wait, why would you marry a man who's like a robot? Why would you? Why would you even be interested in that?
Because they don't know that, or they think that he'll change, or something like that. This is
That's kind
female
of dumb.
psychology 101, man. Like
That's kind of dumb.
I don't know why they think the things they do. It's
like it makes it look like
it's
wait,
pure fantasy, but it's just like
it makes
you know how
sense.
we have the phrase, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. It's like you can't turn a machine into a fucking husband.
Exactly.
It's like he is like that for a reason. He is either so emotionally damaged that he is no good to anyone emotionally, pretty much, or he is just going to be that machine, and you need to live with that, because it ain't gonna get fixed anytime soon.
Like, how would you not understand that? Like, that's what he is. He had to always be like this. There's no way he.
I mean, not always, but since they met, probably.
Yeah, of course. Like, there's no way he could change that much. He had to always have display signs of this. So what?
Where he gets very focused on things and then just ignores everything else around him, and does this probably. I mean, well, technically, he's been doing it for 10 years.
So he had to be like this for 10 years. 10 years. So
probably not constantly, because they probably put him on other cases as well and stuff like that.
I know they put him on other cases, but he's
the kind of detective that's going to nag at him, and every time he gets a spare minute, he's going to go back to the Tenma case. And you see that repeatedly.
Yeah. Although in this case, he was like that when you first meet him when he got the Tenma case. He's always like this robotic character. So, like, wait, why would you even marry that?
Like I said, female psychology, man. If we understood them, I would not be here. I would be, selling books for millions of dollars somewhere. I am not that smart a man.
Exactly.
I'm not sure any man does. Women, actually, that's the funny thing is, men think if we understood women, that women would like us more. I've been corrected by this from my lesbian friends. No, women understand women, and women fucking hate each other.
Yeah, I know.
This is the weird part.
Yes.
It's one of those contradictions of like, oh, if I understand them better, maybe I'll get to know them. Like, no, just don't go there. That's a landmine.
Yes.
Like, are you sure? But there's a nice flower on top of it. Yeah, no. That's what it wants you to think.
And then when Tenma does a little digging around looking for orphanages, he discovers 511 Kinderheim, which is one of the biggest plot points in this entire series.
And it starts out sounding like the name sounds kind of ominous, but most communist bloc most communist bloc nations just did things that way, of just numbering something, and Kinderheim literally just means orphanage, essentially, in German. So
they didn't know that. So basically just orphanage number 511.
Well, I mean, Kinderheim literally translates to child house.
So
it literally
it's the most generic name ever.
Yeah,
most generic name ever.
Welcome to Germany, man. Like, these people don't name things artistically. Like Panzerkampfwagen literally means armored war car. It's like they literally describe things the way that they would describe it. And but it literally just means child house or orphanage number 511. And there's some real interest, even from the first indications you get of this thing. It's like something friggin' weird happened here.
And we get info from this woman. This woman runs another orphanage that's actually good.
But we also meet a guy that seems like he's a good dude.
Now, though, we learn.
The same episode, we learned that he was actually one of the guys who was running 511 Kinderheim, and is kind of why that place had that reputation.
Yes, because it's an orphanage designed to turn children into super spies
It was not
or
even just
psychopathic
super
super
spies.
spies.
It was just a
Psychopathic
social. It was just a social
psychopathic
experiment.
super spy.
It was a social experiment to see if they could break kids and basically turn them into whatever they wanted.
That's the whole point. It's a
Well, not
communist
even just
country.
not even just super soldiers or spies, but just to see if they could.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's a communist government. So we expect.
And not even, and we find out later. And I mean, just given the run length of this, we'd need much longer than 2-3 hours to get into the whole plot of this. So we'll cut to the chase with this one. It's actually related to something, and this is based in reality. This is not a real story, but this kind of shit did happen behind the Iron Curtain because, as you find out, the twins themselves are the product of a Soviet-style breeding program in Czechoslovakia.
So they got prostitutes to carry the children for them.
She wasn't a prostitute at the time.
So she was just a regular woman who got
the
R word.
Who was basically encouraged to breed with this Czechoslovakian soldier, who immediately after she got pregnant was assigned to another task because that's what they did. Because all things in that society, including the people that live in it, are property of the state. It's literally just the same as feudalism, only far, far worse because these people think they can play God. And the scary part is this shit did happen. Like there are real world examples of this where they were conducting social experiments like this on people.
Yes, the Soviet Union did a lot of crazy stuff. I heard they tried to breed humans with apes to create a super ape race of people.
That might be fiction, but they certainly did try to breed, use a eugenics program to try to breed a superior human being. I don't know that they succeeded all that well.
Of course, it didn't succeed.
Well, I mean, you can do certain things, like, you breed two very large, strong people, you'll probably get a larger person.
Of course.
But it's not going to be like, John 117 or something like that. He's not going to be a goddamn superhuman. You need to do that for hundreds or thousands of years.
Or use genetic engineering, which they didn't have at that time.
If they'd had, they would have. Exactly. Which the funny part is, not to get into modern day politics too much, but the Russian propagandists or over the whole Ukraine thing are now saying that's what we're doing on behalf of Ukraine. It's like, first of all, we've signed like 8 treaties banning this because it's all the ways we know of to make something like that are unethical as hell. And second of all, you literally tried to do this in the 70s. We have proof of it.
Yeah. I was surprised no major country did that now, concerning how genetic engineering technology is at a point which it is now.
It's not just the genetic engineering; it's the psychological conditioning.
Psychological conditioning.
And you can either gene engineer someone and raise them their entire life and keep track of them throughout their entire life, and then basically kidnap or then basically force them to join the military, where they can then undergo all of this horrible psychological conditioning and basically be turned into a special forces operative. And that way you won't get somebody that's much stronger or faster than normal. It's just they will be a lot more effective than usual because they're very well trained.
In the case of Monster, they actually try to do that to them as kids.
Yeah, and that's the other way to do it, is try to, especially through genetic engineering, is do what the Spartan 2 program from Halo did. Take little children and turn them into goddamn monsters. Although in the case of this show, they're not, genetically modified, genetically and
engineered, but they're psychologically altered to be the perfect assassins.
Or so they thought.
So they thought.
This experiment backfired on them big time.
Yeah,
because they created something they couldn't control. It's the old Frank, and the funny part is, fiction has been telling this story of man playing God and getting murdered by his own creation since fucking Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Exactly.
It's the exact same thing as, like, you try to do this, you'll be destroyed by your own creation.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
I mean,
and we learned. and because we learned that because we got this kid called Dieter that one of the guys who ran 5-1 Kinderheim is trying to condition to be the next Johann, because we learned Johann was in this, and that's why he's evil. That's why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons he is the way
that's
he
one
is.
We find out.
That's the first real reason we find out.
Mm-hmm. That's the one. Yeah, that's the first.
There's
real
like 8 or 9
other baggage before then. Before there was 10.
But we won't find out about all. This is the latest link in the chain. We'll find out about the earlier ones until once we start pulling.
Once we start, yeah, but Johan was in there. So the tile facility was destroyed because Johan convinced everybody to kill each other when he was a kid.
Either the instructors to kill each other and the students to either kill each other or escape with him.
Yes, and a bunch of other kids escaped too, and they're all psychopaths now, like most of them,
or are just so psychologically damaged they just have horrible issues.
That's one of the most interesting plot points in the series, the 5-on-1 Kinderheim.
Because you run into some of his fellow alumni from there.
Yeah,
some of whom are bad or villains in the series, and some of whom are actually main characters, and really good characters too.
And when we get we also get this whole when Dieter character. How do you feel about Dieter?
Dieter's kind of an interesting character because I think, especially before him and Nina meet back up, he kind of grounds Tenma in a lot of ways.
Yes, he's basically the Robin.
He basically makes sure that Tenma doesn't go off the rails and do what he was originally planning on doing to a whole lot of people. Because Dieter's standing right there.
Yeah, but Dieter's basically Robin, right? I mean,
to an extent, yeah. Like he was born, or he wasn't born in hadn't grown up in 5-1-1 Kinderheim, but he was experimented on by one of the guys who ran it.
Yes, but of course, he didn't get as bad as the actual 5-1 Kinderheim, because the guy doesn't have resources. That's why.
No, like that, and that's honestly one of the best parts of that episode is that like the only reason this kid turned out anywhere near normal, like to the point where Tenma can even get through to him, is the fact that he didn't have the resources to really do what he wanted to.
Yeah, like the drugs and the hypnotism and all that. So he didn't have none of the money to do it.
Yeah, he didn't have access. He didn't either have money or didn't have access to it.
Exactly.
Which either way, that's not great. That's for the best.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that Tenma tries to pawn the kid off on the good orphanage worker that also had worked at 5-on-1 Kinderheim, but absolutely denounced everything they were doing there and thought it was barbaric at the time. So tries to do it, and Dieter just kind of tags along with him on a whole bunch of adventures. There are a few filler episodes, but not many. Like there's a ton of.
There's a reason for that, because the manga was already done by the time they made this anime.
So they didn't need to wait for the manga to catch up.
Exactly.
Which, to people who are not familiar with anime, a lot of the longer ones like Naruto or stuff like that, where they'll have like an entire season of filler, is they're waiting for the new manga series to come out so they can.
Thankfully, they don't do that as much no more, because we actually have seasonal breaks in modern day anime.
Because it used to be every week.
No, but now, because back Japanese television has changed. Back in those days, back in the early 2000s, if a show stopped airing, that means it was canceled. So but now
So every week you would get a new episode, like all the Naruto episodes and stuff. Like that was, everyone's like, how could they have done this many? It's because they were doing one a week for almost a decade.
Yes, so they had to. So of course, it's going to have a lot of episodes. So, but modern day anime, they don't do that anymore. They have seasonal breaks now, thankfully.
Yeah, because they figured out that Western television actually used to know what they were talking about. And so they'll do seasons of like 26, 27 episodes.
The average my episodes is 13 to 26. In Japan.
Which is either a half season or a full season of TV, which is just like what it used to be here. Only now, our TV series, most of which are
all on
online
streaming
now,
services, all have 8 episodes. I know,
like 8 to 10 episodes. Where it like used to be, like especially like the old school TV series, it would be 26, and that was it.
Yeah, and it have 8 to 10 episodes, no matter the length of the episodes. So if it's a live action series that goes on for an hour, it's 8 episodes. But if it's a cartoon that goes on 30 half an hour, it's still 8 episodes. Even though they could easily just made it easy to double that number. It easily could have been 16.
Yep, which used to be you got 26 60-minute episodes. Well, roughly 45 of which was actual show, and then 15 minutes of like commercial stuff.
Of course,
which happens on animes as well. And it's really cool watching older shows on streaming services when they cut out the commercials, because you can still tell where the commercial break was. Because they would have to build that. That's actually one thing I think is missing from newer streaming services like the shows. Like perfect example we were talking about before is Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, where it's the first Star Trek show I've seen anyway that was designed for a streaming service. So you don't have that same pacing that you had with the older Star Trek shows, all of which were on network television, where they have to kind of pace the show in a certain way so that you can tell it in like 3 15-minute blocks and build the tension up and pause for a commercial in the middle so you can then move the story forward when you get back from commercial break.
And here's the thing. The very few streaming services that have that are ad based, because I don't understand why most don't use this model, don't have their own original shows most of the time.
No, things like Hulu, they used to.
No, it's about Tubi. No, it's about Tubi.
Tubi does.
I don't think they have original.
To.
No, Tubi doesn't have its own original shows, don't they? They just have a back catalog.
I don't think they do. I know Hulu used to, but they ever since Disney bought them, they haven't.
No, they still do. Like for example, Hitmonkey Marvel show. That's actually good. For Marvel cartoon, that's actually good.
Well, but that's because Disney owns it, and it was, and it's also on Disney Plus.
No, it was rated R. They couldn't put it on Disney Plus.
Oh, that might be it.
Same thing with a bunch of Marvel Hulu shows that they did. Disney kind of swept under the rug. It was rated R, so they can't put it on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So Hitmonkey was actually good though. So
oh wait, something Marvel did in the last decade is actually decent.
Yeah, but they swept that on the rug because rated R. So and Kevin Feige doesn't control that. You don't know.
It's the Marvel animated studio that Kevin Feige has no control over, and Disney basically ignores the fact that it exists.
Yeah, and not only that, but also part of the reason why it turned out the way it did, because it was in production for a long ass time before the woke. I think before woke stuff took hold, so that's why. So it was in production for a long time. That's why it turned out the way it did.
Yeah, that makes sense. But no, getting back to Monster, like this show like progresses at a fairly rapid pace, and you kind of they do have like little self-contained sections focusing around on one character and how they intersect with Tenma in his journey.
That's what I love about the show storytelling.
Yeah, like, and then like you're like, okay, who's this guy and why am I hearing about him? And then they
bump into out of Tenma a character from one of the other story arcs.
Yeah, and then sooner or later, either Nina or Tenma or both will show up.
Exactly, of course.
Usually after people start dying.
How I feel about the Nazi story arc after that was
that's an interesting one. Where I love it that it shows that Johan is willing to basically manipulate and lie to people in order to get their support, because they think he's the next coming of Hitler.
In this case, he was actually meant for that. At least they thought he was, because when he was a kid in the orphanage,
that's basically one of the things they thought he would be used for.
Exactly.
And
but
he's using that to basically get them to do his dirty work.
Of course he kills them. Of course he kills most of them. So.
Oh yeah, I mean that was always the plan. And like you get that feeling that he's just like.
Of course. Of course, he was lying.
He's just playing through. He's playing these guys through and through, and then as soon as their usefulness is done, they're just gone.
Yeah, because Johan's not a Nazi. Let's be.
No, he's not a Nazi. He's just completely insane. Which the two are not mutually exclusive, but in this case, they happen to be.
Yeah, he just want to watch the world burn.
Yep, and he's willing to basically use people's ideologies against them, and people's own thoughts and patterns against them to basically get them to do what he wants, which we see a lot in the finale, where they're basically. Well, we'll get to there, but yeah, I thought that whole thing with burning down the Turkish quarter and stuff like that was pretty interesting.
What I didn't get was that scene where there's at the diner, what the baby and baby and Nina was at the diner, and because what is that homage something? Because I keep seeing that. I saw that in Daredevil too. First, he did Daredevil too. Like, was that homage something?
I don't think so. I think it was just that may actually be a restaurant in Frankfurt. I don't know.
No, I talk about the them sitting at that diner while something's burning in the background.
Well, that was him basically wanting to go to one of the tallest points in town and watch it burn.
No, because they did the exact same thing in Daredevil. I was shocked, by the way, when I saw that Daredevil. They did the exact same thing.
The 2004 Daredevil, the movie.
No, talk about the Daredevil TV show,
the Netflix show. Oh, honestly, that might be an homage to this.
In
some ways. I don't know that that's the case, but if it's similar,
because they did the exact same scene, like they had diner things burning.
Now that you say it might not be like it that. Given when those two came out, the one in Daredevil actually might be referencing this.
Because I wouldn't be surprised if Daredevil's career actually saw Monster, considering how they wrote the first season.
Yeah. I can see that actually, especially given Kingpin's character.
Yeah, the baby, and the baby actually webbed stuff, of course. And by the way, why Tenma left Dita in the care of this character called Heckle?
Who's basically just a complete scumbag and thief, at least at first.
He does have some kind of morals, doesn't kill anybody, but
or tries not to.
Tries not to, but it's like, but his face is drawn to look like a rat, by the way.
Oh yeah, he's supposed to be basically like, if anybody is into 40K, the Skaven character, who's kind of a scavenging scumbag.
Yeah, he's just a douche. He's
not a murderer. He's just a carrion eater.
Yes. We stole, like, especially
in fact, don't you meet him when he's picking through the house of somebody who gets murdered when he runs into
somebody committed suicide.
That's right. Or was it supposedly committed suicide or actually did?
No, he actually committed suicide.
That's right.
He was somebody associated with Johan.
And then you run into Heckle when he's just when he's looting the freaking house.
And Heckle works. Heckle works with Heckle want Tenma to fix up this terrorist guy who tried to assassinate a politician, and well, the guy still went to jail anyway. That's one of those pointless story arcs where it doesn't contribute to me much. And how you feel about the college arc? That's one of the biggest arcs of the series, the college arc.
That's a very interesting one because you have multiple different subplots that are all kind of orbiting each other for a while, and then you kind of figure out that they're all related.
Yeah, no, that was the biggest one. That's one that takes and
it takes right up until really the end to figure out why they're all related to the main story. Because they kind of all like start at 3 different points, and they all kind of start orbiting each other until you get down to the point where that's why this all connects.
Because we have what's his character name? I forgot his name. The son of Shuval. What's his name?
Oh, Carl.
Carl, yeah, Carl. And yeah, called the son of Shu. He knows he's the biological son of Shuval, but he doesn't want to. But he doesn't want to tell him that out the gate.
This really rich, investment banker essentially.
Yeah. They call him the what's called him the vampire of.
Vampire Bavaria, I think.
Yeah, vampire of Bavaria. Yeah, that's right. This really rich businessman, and that moment was a turning point in the series. Of course, that's one of the best arcs.
Oh, that was great. Especially because you start to see a lot of the original characters like Tenma and Nina evolve a little bit. Like you start seeing Nina being kind of more like Johan than anyone's comfortable with, and everyone starts to see it. Because especially how easily she starts killing people.
Before then we learned about episode 20. We actually learned about one of the dirty cops and his life, and Nina was when Nina's in the episode, and we got introduced to Roberto. Yeah,
who is an interesting character, and again, they don't really directly tie him in at first.
Yeah, but he's Johan's right hand man. I actually surprised to introduce him at that point in the show. Like we normally introduce a character like that way earlier.
Either that or at like the midpoint, and then you start dealing with him, and then you figure out that he's not the big bad; he's tied to somebody else.
Yes, but no, the way they introduce him is odd. He's the right hand man. He's pretty much the lieutenant of Johan.
But you don't figure that out until way later in the college arc.
Yeah,
where they're like, "Why is Roberto? Oh no!"
And he's not just a hitman. He's not just a regular hitman. He's actually the right hand man of Johan.
Yeah, like you figure out he's actually invested in this shit because he wouldn't be doing the things he's doing otherwise.
Also, the content creator, Roberto actually has a crush on Johan, but
yeah, they don't go into that.
They don't go into that in anime. Man, one manga. He ain't going to that, but he, according to the creator, he said Roberto actually has kind of has a similar situation going on there slightly.
Yeah, a little bit. And you see that at the end, where he has a very sycophantic relationship with Johan.
So Roberto and Roberto, yeah, and in the college arc, in the university arc, we get we get Carl. We also get what's the chick who's walks with him, glasses on.
Oh hell, I forget her name.
I forgot her name. We also got Detective Richard Brown, who is one of the most disappointing, one of the most intentionally disappointing things that have happened in the show. Now unlike Loongay, Richard Brown is better in comparison, more human in comparison, far more. He has drinking problems,
but like he's a very human character, and yet is still figuring this out, and is actually getting his shit together.
Yeah, because he wants to see his daughter again,
and you're like, and he's actually doing it and actually getting everything.
I was actually rooting for him to, and then Johan killed him.
That's exactly that's when I first started seeing like his family come back around to him and actually start all that. I'm like, this guy's gonna get killed, isn't he? Because you're starting to like him.
And Johan kills him. Like, he never gets to see his daughter again.
And that's a recurring theme throughout this series. If there's a guy in this series, if there's a person in this series who you're generally starting to root for and kind of like, they're gonna die almost immediately after that.
Dr. Reichwein, the psychologist, we probably one of the best characters of the show. He's similar to what's his thoughts on Reichwein?
Yeah, I mean he was a very interesting character in that he's very important to the story in a lot of ways because he puts a lot of the pieces together.
Yes.
And he's also just a genuinely good dude.
Yeah. He carries on the investigation from Richard.
Yeah, and he really just starts putting the pieces together.
Yeah, I think he's living the life that Tenma wished he was living.
Or he's living the life that Tenma can't because Reichwein's not wanted for murder.
Exactly.
And this was like not, and this wasn't like this guy is kind of known, and this is what he looks like, and he's kind of generic looking. Like Tenma
No,
sticks out in every city he's
of
in,
course, because he's Japanese.
He's the Japanese doctor.
It's got kind of a hall because he's Asian. You're Asian in a white, European country.
And also, you happen to be a brilliant doctor who actually starts saving people along the way, and then everyone kind of figures out who he is in like 5 minutes. Not to mention his face was plastered all over German TV at the time, and everyone's kind of like, "You're not, yeah, you're him."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we quite a few things like him Tim was saving Tim will work with the Vietnamese girl, young Vietnamese girl at a illegitimate doctor.
Basically a back alley clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Which is an interesting couple of episodes. She doesn't really factor into the show that much.
She was in one episode, but her background is she was adopted by a family who only saw her as a virtual signaling tool.
Pretty much.
It's more relevant nowadays than probably when the show came out.
Yeah, well, I mean, the show came out in 2004, so that was probably already going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the show's supposed to take place in the 90s.
Yeah, 90s. That's about 90s at that point.
And it's an interesting time because she's supposed to be Vietnamese, I think.
Yes, the show set in 1990s at that time, at that point in the story.
Which is interesting because even as a kid, she would have been adopted in the 1980s or maybe late 1970s. Because she would have been the 80s because they say she's only like 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Which means she would have had to have fled North Vietnam, now Vietnam, because this is much longer than 17 years after the war. Because the Vietnam War ended in 1975.
But I think just the fall that fled there, though. I think I'm not sure.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think that was the story. Is he fled with her, and then he died along the way somehow, and then she got adopted by a German couple.
And he saw his virtual signaling tool, and that's it. Like, didn't really care.
Unlike a guy you meet earlier, who's actually the guy who teaches Tenma to use a gun, who's a fairly interesting character.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. The gun. He actually has a adoptive Asian daughter.
It's not necessarily adopted.
Oh yeah, he killed her mama. So
yeah, basically, like the entire reason she's there is he killed her mother, and he felt really bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
So he took her with him.
But she does kind of like a Thanos, but unlike Thanos, the guy's not a mad titan.
He's not. Well, he's not an asshole. I'll put it that way. He's actually pretty even keeled and genuinely just tries to do the right thing. But he is. You can tell he's an incredibly skilled human being, though.
We also get I forgot his character. I forgot his name. Another major character in the story who throughout the show is a criminal psychologist. Forgot blind guy.
Oh,
major character.
Dr. Hemmer.
He went to Switzerland. Like that? Oh yeah, he went to school with Tenma. So
yeah, and Hemmer is just like, yeah, there's no way this guy's guilty of what he said, and he kind of like keeps trying to prove it. And kind of keeps
and keeps arguing with Lunge, of course.
And he keeps trying to get in contact with, or he keeps coming into contact with people in Tenma's wake. Essentially, of people who've interacted with him previously and his experiences, and is basically making the case of why Tenma is not the guy Lunge thinks he is. And eventually gets through to him.
Of course.
And Lunge has a very big character shift at certain points and starts trying to figure out, instead of where Tenma is, what the hell's going on.
He also starts to become more human, I noticed.
Yep. And starts, making things like humorous comments and stuff like that, which he wouldn't have before. And another character you come into contact with who's kind of like Lunge in a way, and they actually do have a couple of pretty good scenes together late in the show, is this freelance journalist by the name of Mr. Grimmer.
Yeah, Mr. Grimmer. Yeah, that's after the college arc, Wait, and by the way, the episode in which Tenma shoots Roberto was a big turning point.
Because it's the first time I think you actually ever see him pull the trigger on somebody.
Also on an actual person. But before then, he had shot a warning shot to Roberto when he tried to shoot kill
And
Right.
I think he'd also fired a couple shots in self defense of essentially he was already being shot at and just returned fire. But this is the first time you see him actually engage first and pull the trigger on somebody. Yeah, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was pretty much everyone who saw the show's reaction of.
I felt the same way too. Like I was clapping with that moment.
Because like Tenma's personality, and he's like gonna want to get the benefit of doubt, and everyone's just like, don't do it. It's gonna end badly. Shoot him.
By the way, I felt the character of the fat prostitute was what Ava would have been if she not gone through character development.
Yeah, pretty much. She would have ended up down that road eventually.
Remember the fat prostitute lady?
Yep.
Yeah, of course.
The one who claims to be
Margot Langer.
Yeah, the prostitute who turns out to not have been a prostitute, and that's not her real name.
No, Margot Langer is different from Johan's parent, Johan's mother. She knew Johan's mother.
Is she though?
No, she was different. No, they're two women who knew each other.
Oh, that's right. They were friends. That's right. Did one of them end up using the other one's name at some point? Because I could swear they were both called Margot at some point.
Yeah. I think
they're two different women, but they went by the same name at one point. To flee Czechoslovakia.
But Margot Langer is Carl's mother.
Yes.
So, anyway.
But that was, I'm like, I know both of them went by that name at various points, but they're not the same woman.
Yeah.
And then this is a third one who's claiming to go by that one. And
the fat
nothing to do with either one of them.
Yeah. Roberto took care of her though.
Good.
I mean, nobody liked her anyway. So
no, everyone's just like, well, that's what she gets for being a lying bitch for the entire time anyone knows her and manipulating the shit out of everybody around her.
Yeah, I clap. I did clap in the moment. Tenma thinks he killed Roberto.
And no one ever knows her real name, but ever since we found out that that's not her real name, I basically just started referring to her as Jabba with eyeshadow.
Yeah, that's what she was really.
She was just a fat thing smoking on a couch with a ton of eyeshadow and absolutely no moral compass whatsoever.
Like a female version of Jabba the Hutt. But
yeah, pretty much. And not even like a feminine version of Jabba the Hutt. Just pretty much picture somebody doing up Jabba the Hutt in female clown makeup, and that's pretty much what this was.
And we also get during that college arc we also get I forgot also we learned out the Richard Brown had previously shot serial killer who was murdering and committing the R word against women. Well, it turns out he was in 5-1 kidnapping as well, but we don't get the guy's name.
Yep, and it's interesting that they picked that guy because knowing a lot of police officers and a lot of vets, like a guy like that, nobody would have PTSD over shooting that kid. He'd be like, nah, he needed to go, and I got to be the one who put him down. So.
Yeah, I know he's underage, but still.
Yeah, it would be one of those he was 16, so I do feel bad a little bit, but that's one of those. Nah, this dude was a complete fucking lunatic. He needed to go bye-bye, and I'm the one who made that happen. It would almost be like the guys who actually went into the school recently and took that son of a bitch out. I won't even say his name because I don't want to give any of those assholes that kind of notoriety.
Okay.
But that's one of those, like, I guarantee that he may have been an 18-year-old kid, but I guarantee that cop's not losing any sleep over it.
But yeah, but this
those
guy
are one of
does.
those, like, this is a bad person.
Okay, this guy did. This guy did.
And that's a major plot point for his character, and it's not so clear that Johan didn't have a hand in that.
No, he didn't. He didn't because there's just no way he could have been there at that time because he was doing other stuff. He was.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There's no way he wasn't there at that time.
Although, as we've seen in the series before, just because he's not there at the time doesn't mean he didn't set parts of that scenario up and just let it play.
But that wouldn't really make any sense because why was the serial killer just going after just doing regular serial killer stuff if that was the case?
Well, later on you run into a series of serial killers in, I think, Czechoslovakia that
but they wasn't doing regular serial killer stuff though. They was before they met Johan. Then after he met Johan, they started doing some stuff he told them to do.
Yeah, well, they did one that he told them to.
Exactly,
specifically.
But this guy did. He just kept.
But that's an interesting thought that maybe that would have been a little different. But that could just be a coincidence. Although there's an awful lot of serial killers in this story for 90s Germany, which is interesting.
Also, then after college arc, we get this arc about this cat. Shuval apparently knows who their true mother was because he gave information on research on Margot Langer and her death, as he gave that nurse the call. Also, we learned that Johan killed Margot Langer.
Yeah, and also we learned that we think these kids are East German the whole time, and it turns out they're not East German; they're Czech.
They're at least half read Czech and East German.
Yeah, I mean they're at least. I mean, at the time we think they're half Czech, yeah, but they were found they were basically found walking together on the Czechoslovakian border, so they're basically just assumed to be Czech refugees essentially. And at that time, both countries were behind the issue.
One of the big, I almost looked over this. One of the biggest twists in the show, and this caught me off guard completely when I first watched this, is the nameless monster, the fairy tale twist. Because at the end of each episode, you see.
Yeah, at the end of each episode, the end title kind of doesn't make any sense with the rest of the series until you get to the middle of the show.
That shocked me when I first saw it. How you feel about it? Would that catch you off guard? Or
I think that's interesting. It was really shocking at first because there's no lead into it. Later on, it makes perfect sense because you start to realize who other characters in the show that were kind of behind some of this.
It shocked me because that's the end credits. So I realized that's the end credits. Like,
yeah, and I was just like, that's what the end credits scene is.
Yeah,
because it never made any sense to me. I'm just like,
yeah, right? The nameless monster, which was a creepy fairy tale written by a character lady. I think we get to see at the end of the show.
That goes by about 6 different names. So
6 independent names. So,
and then although a lot of animes do that, where you'll see things in the end credits that don't make a lot of sense from the early episodes, and then you'll find out later why they're like that. And you're like, oh. And in this case, it's well, that's horrifying.
Yeah, the nameless monster, that fairy tale, which was basically Johan and Nina are.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you especially start hearing tapes of Johan starting to basically say the monster's line.
Yeah, I know
that fairy tale at about the same time you find out about the book.
And no, later on.
Is it later on? I thought it was about the same time.
No, later on, much later. That's after the college arc.
Oh, that's right.
That's fairy tale during just before the fire happened.
That's when they're in Prague. What I'm talking about. But it's an interesting duality when they're kind of like starting to put the pieces together. And it's like, why do I constantly have audio tapes of Johan saying this line and referencing the monster?
At that point. The monster inside me is growing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but he constantly started saying that, but nobody had any idea what it meant until we read the picture book.
Yeah, yeah, and that fairy tale told the story of two monsters split up. Then one went east, one went west. Two nameless monsters, and they possess people.
Yep, and basically steal their names because they don't have ones of
Still,
their own.
they don't have one's their own, but one's their own. But then eventually, a monster eats them from the inside out. And that's weird for a fairy tale. Like, well, why would you tell your kids?
That's. I mean, although some of the original like Brothers Grimm fairy tales get dark.
I know, but but then again, we learn about the guy who wrote it, and yeah, so it makes sense for him.
Right. Yeah, especially when you learn about the guy who wrote it, where it goes way deeper. Like the things that were done to these kids go way deeper than 511 Kinderheim in some ways.
Yeah, like he made fairy tales that even the entertainment design be messed up.
Well, I mean, and it was all as part of a social experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
Which communist governments are famous for. Including later in the series, there's a lot of imagery of Johann and Nina basically being dressed identically, which I think they're being raised identically. Which is interesting. That was a social experiment that the East Germans were doing.
I know. They made Johann cross dress when he's a kid.
Well, and this was a thing the East Germans were doing at the time.
No, I know.
That was an actual social experiment that they tried, which is reason number 572,000 why communism really was A, not popular with the locals, and B, was just fucked in that they would just play with people's lives because they wanted to find out what happened. Yeah, and in some cases it worked out, and in some cases it just broke these people completely. And if you ever said anything about it, they would send you off to the gulag or just take you out back and shoot you. Which, given the story arc we're about to go into, is an interesting segue.
And once again, the Prog story arc, we immediately get introduced to Grimmer, Mr. Grimmer, who is from 501 Kinderheim.
And is a very interesting character because you don't know what the hell's going on with him at first because he doesn't react normally to things.
Yeah, he's always smiling, putting a fake smile.
And outside of certain situations, he's mostly like, just got this pleasant smile going on, stuff like that.
From the way he's designed, he looks almost like what's that show? What's that anime? A Lupin the Third character almost more realistic, but still.
Yeah, I can see that.
The tall, skinny guy. She's looking for. He's a news reporter. Used to be a spy. Looking for. Looking for the doctors who was at one of the doctors who was at the 501 Kinderheim.
And he finds a link to Prog somehow, and a link to the Czech government.
Yeah, and Tenma also went there. On the train at the same time.
And Grimmer eventually, I think within like one episode, runs into into guys who used to be part of the Czech secret police.
And it turns out we get this evil, corrupt Zaman, the evil, corrupt Inspector Zaman.
Not necessarily corrupt. He's trying to cover his own tracks because he used to be part of the Czech secret police.
No, I don't think he was. No, I think he was actually. He was a
policeman in the new government.
Yeah, I think he was always policeman.
I think it's heavily inferred that he was a secret policeman in the old government too.
No, he's not. There's no way he could.
There's a couple of characters that were.
No, I know. It's not him. He's working with them though. But
that's right. He's been paid by them.
Yeah, he's been paid by them, and he was always just evil to begin with because he don't care. He don't care about his money. I don't care about his money, so he doesn't give a damn. And he's a psychopath. Obviously, he tortures Grimmer using a toenail clipper.
Yeah. Well, I mean that is an effective interrogation method, but not fun, and not something a policeman should be using. That's like one of those like old Soviet tricks of, we're not gonna sit you down in a room and then ask you questions and provide evidence. We're just gonna take you in the basement and hook you up to a car battery until you tell us what we want to know and confess to everything. Because we don't actually care if we get the right guy or not. We just want a fucking body.
And then with Rimmer, we also during the Prog, we kind of set up a mystery involving Nina. Like, has she become Johan? But then, yeah,
that there's an interesting amount of crossover between Nina and Johan's characters. That doesn't really make a lot of sense until very much later.
Well, and because after we learned from that scene with Rimmer being tortured, we learned that he's the Hulk essentially.
As an American comic book fan, didn't you love like that, like totally, absolutely not the Incredible Hulk?
I know. I remember that he said he used to watch TV shows. Literally just a ripoff of the Incredible Hulk called the Magnificent Steiner. It's obviously a stand for the Hulk.
Yeah, it's like the only difference is that he's purple instead of green. It's literally just like, this is not on the nose at all.
Yeah, it's the Hulk. They gave him, they made him watch that as a kid, and then during the 5-1 kid in high conditioning. So he pretty much is the Hulk from how he acts. He blacks out and he goes crazy and kills people who torture him.
Yep. Only 2 of them though, because Nita gets one of them.
Yeah, but that's not needed later.
But but that's the interesting thing when the cops show up is they're like, there's a gunshot wound in one of them.
The other two
and they don't ever really explain what happened.
And Zaymon has face bashed in.
Yeah, it's like the other 2 had like horrible beating wounds all over them, and they're like, and everyone in the audience is thinking like, because all you see before is Nina shoot one of them and then it cuts out. So we're like, Nina, who's this? Like, she's not she's a thin blonde girl. Like, but then picture Grimmer, like this petite little blonde girl, and everyone's like, Nina did that.
No, but then Grimmer
goes back 3 times her size.
Then Grimmer goes back home and talks to himself. Then you realize, it's Grimmer did that.
Well, yeah, you realize shortly after that he and the Magnificent Steiner are the same thing.
Yeah, he watched that show. They made him into that thing.
Yeah, and which is an interesting plot point for him because that'll come in handy for him a couple more times, and also be an interesting plot point in the end. But no, that was a really cool revelation where it was like, he keeps talking about this Magnificent Steiner. And it is a counterintelligence technique of when you're being tortured, talk about things that you remember from your memory that you want to talk about. So you're kind of preventing the information that they want from getting out. Because you're constantly, instead of thinking about the information they want, you're thinking about this kid's cartoon you used to watch. So I thought that was what it was at first, and then it turned into that. I'm like, oh, that's really cool too.
Yeah, he's the Hulk. Like,
or just without the actual superpowers.
Doesn't have actual superpowers, just tends to go berserk.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't actually have super strength. He's just a whole boatload of crazy and is amped up on adrenaline at that moment. But no, he's a really interesting character throughout the whole series, and he keeps popping up from time to time.
And we also get immediately after that when he gets this character called Zuck, who's another
Detective Zook. Yep,
Detective Zook,
who's just this rookie detective who basically has no business being on the cases he is.
Yeah, we learned that he learns that the police have been compromised,
and that his mentor, Detective Zaymon, was one of them.
He was working when he's paid off. They paid him off. He was corrupt.
Yeah, but he learns that his mentor was on the take, and basically everything he ever thought about the police department is wrong.
And then all Hobbs got killed with poison candy as usual. And that's how we learned that the girl he's talking to, Nina, is not actually Nina. It's actually Johan with makeup on and dress.
Sometimes, and sometimes not, because that one was actually Johan dressing up as Nina.
Mm-hmm.
And then the funny one to me was that Johan tried to pin that one on Zook with the poison candy.
Yeah, I know. He playing Candy Ass house to make it look like he poisoned him.
And fortunately for Zook, that didn't work out.
I also got the tape. For the tape from 5-1 Kinderheim when Johan's being conditioned as a kid.
Yeah, that one was interesting. And then they kind of bounced back and forth a little bit between Prague and several cities in Germany. As like, I think Nina's in Prague still, and kind of figuring out what's going on that side of it. And Tenma goes off to, is it Dusseldorf? No, not Dusseldorf. There's a whole bunch of German cities involved here. Is it Dusseldorf? It might be.
About Johan does dressed up as Nina to that kid. To that kid by a line about his mother being in the red light district.
But Johan dresses up as Nina occasionally. I don't think, but Nina. But that's an important distinction to make: is that Nina is not the same character as Johan.
Of course,
and they are not the same and they are not the same person.
Of course,
but you will see. But that gets confusing later because you will see references to Johan that look like Nina.
Because they're twins.
They're twins, and one of them was basically, especially when they're kids, they're basically. You will see Johan dressed as Nina, and as a girl in general, but the voice will be different.
Of course, but still.
But that does get confusing in the animation because they don't necessarily tell you that
all the time. But we do realize from the plot. You realize from the plot how they behave.
Well, you do, but they don't come out and say it. And so if you're like not quite paying attention when that happens, you're like, why are there two Ninas? And why does one of them's voices sound a little different? But that could also be a difference between the dub and the sub, and that it could have been a lot more obvious in the sub version, but the English dub, the voice actors sounded a little similar. Or something like that, but
what do you think about what happens to that kid? Well, that's one of the most gut wrenching scenes. Because you know how Johan is with children. I mean, before then, during the college arc, he had Vince kids could jump off buildings, play a death game. So Adidas had to bring a kid back from that. That's one of
and that was one of Dieter's cool. That was one of Dieter's coolest scenes in the whole show, is because he gets to be the hero for once and be like, whoa.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on here, but that's not okay.
Yeah, because Johan was trying to make another kid to psychopath just like him. But with this, when the case we did to the kid when he's at the red light district, that was one of those gut wrenching. How you feel about that scene? How that scene make you feel?
That one's pretty dark, man.
Yeah,
that's like, holy shit. You basically just freaking. They don't actually show it, but they basically imply that kid went off and fucking killed himself.
I don't know if he did that, but like when he they saw sex in the alleyway.
Oh yeah, and it's just like completely scarred by it.
Yeah,
and you can tell just by what he's doing. And that kid,
and that guy's a douchebag, by the way.
Oh yeah, yes. I mean, that's absolutely the case. And a lot of people in the show are portrayed as just real degenerates, which is like the real world. A lot of people
the prostitutes didn't want to have sex in front of him because he's a little kid, but the teacher said, "No, I'm a teacher, So
yeah, that was where that moment got real dark. It was just like
what?
It's like, okay, that just went to another level.
Like what? Like what?
Like it was already creepy and horrible that he was even there, and that just got a lot worse. Especially the fact that the guy knows he's there and doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm a teacher. Like what?
That's just like one of those like, oh, okay. And Johan does some interesting things in this series.
He always tries to destroy the innocence of children.
Yep, because that's what was done to him almost at birth, or at least since he's been old enough to remember. And he then does it to others.
So, well, and finally, one of the auction shows about Tenma and Grimmer going back to Johan, the hometown of the current residence of the guy who wrote the creepy fairy tale.
Yep. And at the same time, you kind of figure out that this is like Johan's end game.
That was his end game, just to kill that guy.
Not only just to kill that guy, but to basically do what he did at 511 Kinderheim,
but to the entire city,
Kinderheim, to the entire town. Yeah, and it starts happening all around. Like the last 4 episodes, it just starts happening. And it starts slow at first. Everyone's just like, was that a gunshot? And it happens like once in an episode. And nobody really thinks too much of it. And then like somebody starts mentioning it. And then it starts happening more and more. And people start getting more and more paranoid. And it just starts this spiral. And all of a sudden people are fucking shooting their neighbors. Everybody's shooting everybody. And this sleepy little town in southern Germany turns into the wild fucking West.
Well, it's a thing. Here's the thing here. Because originally Johan was going to destroy the world. Originally, that's why he changed after he read the children's book again. Because the original plan was he's going to kill Shuval. He have Roberto kill Shuval. He's going to take his place.
Yep. And after he read that children's book again, he kind of remembered a lot of.
Yeah, he remember. Yeah, you're just going to destroy the world. And first by getting the highest sea of power, which is Shuval's company, or whatever his company was.
Because I think that was what his initial programming was. To basically infiltrate West Germany and gain as high a seat of power as he could. Because keep in mind, he was programmed by East Germany. So at the time, they would have been trying to insert agents into the West German government, and this was done throughout the West, throughout the Cold War.
Yeah.
And we are feeling the effects of that now.
Although Shuval wasn't a politician, though, but still, it's a businessman. He want to take over his company.
The difference between a businessman with a lot of money and a politician is the face on TV.
Okay, got it.
And that's true to this day. I mean, Robin Williams made a joke about it in one of his stand-up specials. I thought it was freaking brilliant. It's like we should make congressmen wear the same like jackets as NASCAR drivers, because all of a sudden the way they're voting would make a lot more sense with all the people sponsoring them on it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I get it.
That's one of those like, yeah, you know what? He's not wrong. Because once you figure out the people who are behind them, and also the fact that, like, regardless of what side of the aisle, and this is not just an American thing, this is a political thing at any point. What side of the aisle you're on, a smart company will actually give money to both sides. So that way, no matter who's in power at any given point, they have influence. And that's how this whole thing works. And I think that was the initial plan, is to basically put Johan in that position to be able to influence West German politics like that.
Yeah, but of course Johan's going to kill everybody. Of course, we'll lead everybody to death. They don't death, but that will allow him great.
But at the same time, I think there was still remnants of that programming in there. I don't know if Johan was aware of it.
No, I don't think so.
But
I think Johan was aware because his original plan, like I say, he's going to kill everybody. That was the point.
well, I
That was the
think
point.
that can be also used in multiple different levels. Is I think the initial programming was kind of like faulty, not faulty, but didn't take 100%, but most of the major parts are still in there. It wasn't. He was just like, "Oh, you destroy the world." I think they basically wanted him to destroy West Germany or destabilize the West, so that because keep in mind this is the Cold War. That was what the German government want, or what the East Germans and anyone on the eastern side of the Iron Curtain wanted was the fall of the West.
I think it was that Johan didn't fully remember his past, so he just wanted to
Well,
destroy the whole
but
world.
I think there's remnants of that conditioning in there. Whether he even knew that that was why he wanted to do that or not, because he doesn't remember a lot.
Mm, but
And then I think once he reads that book, and especially the
he
part
only
where
clearly
Prog,
he
it
only
jogs his memory a lot.
yeah he only clearly remembers the stuff that happens after 501 Kinderheim.
Yeah, and that's to be expected when you're 10 years old and take a bullet to the brain.
Mm,
Yeah, that I never had it happen to me myself, but I hear it's not good.
mm.
So, no, that's a really interesting plot point. Is that he kind of changes as he grows a lot, which is something
Mm-hmm.
you don't usually see out of a villain in a lot of these.
Especially
It's
not villain of his caliber.
Yeah, especially not a main villain. Like usually, it's not that the villain himself changes. You're just learning more about him
Mm,
and learning what his actual plan is.
By the way, have you ever seen an anime called Elfen Lied?
I have seen parts of it. Yeah.
But yeah, most people didn't pay attention to. I actually pay attention to the story. With that, the main that and actually the main protagonist is the villain though. So, but
That's actually kind of the cool part about that series is like the way it starts. It's not that bad, and then you see the main character start to do some shit. You're like,
no, but
it's
no, the
like
case of Elfen, no,
it's almost like the meme where you see the two like with the two British guys like, are we the baddies?
no, in the case of Elfen Lied, no, in the case of Elfen Lied, well, she's the main protagonist, but she's not the main character. We don't, the show starts with her, but let's settle. At the same time,
But that's
she
what I mean by
doesn't.
the main character that is the protagonist.
Oh,
Is usually it's the main character, but you can tell who the show is telling you to root for.
Yeah, no. In the case of Lucy from Elfen Lied, she was not very moral person at all from the beginning, and she doesn't really change. We learn more about her.
Yeah, no, but like the things she starts doing aren't great, but they're not as questionable as some of the shit you find out about later.
Yeah, but she
And they
doesn't really
kind of
change
lead you
out.
down the path a little bit, and then you're just
Yeah.
like, wait a minute.
So if you ever watched that show, I have hadn't felt nothing but apathy for that character by the end. Like,
well, no, but you're also just like seeing some of the things she's doing throughout the show, and you're just like, she's supposed to be the protagonist. But this is what's going on.
now, see, I
I
felt
don't like it.
like she actually one of my most hated villains in fiction. So ever that when I watched that show, like damn, like because they actually want the Grays actually wanted you to sympathize with her, but he had kind of have the opposite effect. Where when one of the backstory help, she has
Well,
a
I
weak
think that's
motivation.
a good. I think that's an interesting literary choice too.
Because she has a weak motivation.
No, she does, but I think that's an interesting choice from a character standpoint. Is that the show is trying to make you sympathize with, question your own morality in a lot of ways by trying to make you sympathize with somebody you really shouldn't be sympathizing with.
Mm. Okay, back to Monster. Back to Monster. Oh,
Actually,
we
I'm
also
gonna go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back.
okay. Yeah, I'm almost getting to the end. Getting into this. Let's get on this character you want. And wow. But Johan, okay, the way this plot is laid out, yeah, usually shows like this, the villain does not change. Like usually the villain stays the same. If you guys show a villain of this caliber, this type of this, it's just regular human antagonist who is on a mission to wipe out humanity. Usually they don't change, but then but Johan actually does change quite a bit, change course. So,
But yeah, that is quite a change for Johan's character in that
mm,
he kind of just has a different goal of what is it they refer to in the final arc, the ultimate suicide, where basically he kills everything else around him and then leaves, and leaves one
and then,
person alive who knows it.
no. He wanted Tenma to kill him at the end.
Yeah, but he basically wanted. Well, that was part of the thing that made it the ultimate was that he
He
wanted
want
the most innocent person, the only person in this whole thing who's innocent, to basically kill him,
exactly.
such that he's corrupted him.
So as he's corrupting him, it's kind of like the Joker in Dark Knight, where he wants
Mm-hmm.
Batman to kill him.
He wants Batman to kill him, so he corrupts Batman even in his own death.
Yes.
Just to show that no one's uncorruptible.
Yeah, and Johan want that then. And 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 it wound up being the drunk father who saves dad then.
That was the awesome part. Is basically the guy you're supposed to hate, and you do throughout that entire arc. It's just like he's just a drunken deadbeat who beats his kid and is just generally a piece of shit. Meanwhile, like, all of this shit is going on around him. He's too drunk to know any of what's going on around him, but he sees Johan holding a gun to his kid, and pretty much without hesitation, just blows this dude away.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it interesting that they could have ended it where Tenma just lets him die.
But he saves him again.
He saves him again, which is an interesting choice. And that Tenma is shown to be like the ultimate character, like the ultimate good character.
Ultimate good guy.
In that he knows what he's doing may cause problems. And that he may be making the same mistake all over again, but he's willing to do it. Although not without much sidelong looks and convincing by Nina. Because if you notice, it takes him a good couple of minutes to kind of be like, all right, fine. He very, very slowly agrees to do that. And then the show kind of ends where it starts.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool.
Although Johan's lost his motivation for killing, so.
Yeah, he's kind of, I think Johan is no longer Johan. He's not even the same character we remember. I think, and you never see him speak after that.
He gets away. Yeah, he gets away at the end. But yeah, but apparently there's a son called Another Monster after this. By the same author that explains that Johan did give up at the end.
Okay. Because I don't know if they ever adapted that into an anime. I may have to go.
They never adapted to the anime, but the author of the manga made something called Another Monster after that explains he did give up right then.
Okay. So I'll have to go look that up at some point.
And Johan's character is interesting that the first thing that corrupted him as a child was the horrible living environment he was born into. I mean, is Soviet Union.
Well, I mean, Czechoslovakia, which is basically Soviet light.
Yeah. At that time.
And you find out, like we said earlier, he's basically the product of a breeding program. And that was basically like his mother basically fought to get the two away from the government, and then the government just took them anyway. Because they fled to they were kept somewhere. I forget where, and then she actually escaped with them to Prague,
Mm,
only to be found out.
mm. And she gave up Nina to the and they brought her to this weird meeting. What's that mean? What's that meeting about? I don't know. I
Well,
forgot.
she was the one that they tried to condition.
Originally, but then the fire had then they poured this. Everybody died.
Yeah, that was the funny thing is they had a Czech breeding program that was trying to do this through like children's books and stuff like that, and the whole like a bunch of book reading
Mm,
in the name of creating this glorious new state in Czechoslovakia, I guess.
mm,
And she poisoned all of them.
mm.
Or it's never really known where. Actually, no, she doesn't poison them. The guy who was in charge of it,
the author
the
of the
author
books,
of these books, then
he
poisons
poisoned
all of
her,
them to
and
try,
Nina
because he
watches it,
basically falls in love with these two kids
and Nina watches it,
and is traumatized by it. And then
and then she
the
tells
mother
Johann,
and the mother is taken away somewhere and
yeah,
somehow escapes. But those two escape to East Germany,
mm.
where Johann is then placed in 511 Kinderheim.
Mm,
And then the same kind of conditioning happens to him.
mm,
Only he's heard about it from Nina, so it confuses him because
mm.
he's mixing Nina's memories with his own.
Yes. Yes, and also, yeah. So he experienced a lot of messed up stuff before 501 Kinderheim, if you can tell. So when 501 Kinderheim finally conditioned him to be conditioned him, he was already, well. Let's just say he got 2 doses of evil and said,
Yeah, or he heard about one from his sister and the trauma that she went through, and then it happened to him too.
yes. So you got 2 doses, two or 3 doses of evil. Then that's that's not, and that creates the, I don't know. Why? What to call? What to call? What do you call Johan? I mean,
He's
got,
beyond he's beyond a sociopath.
I mean, he's a super villain. I might that's the easiest way. That's the best way.
He's an evil mastermind essentially,
Mm-hmm.
in that supervillain isn't really the right term because he doesn't have any special powers and he's not all that cool or whatever. He's just there and able to manipulate everything around him.
I mean, there are super villains in comics who all don't have special powers. I mean, look at Kingpin. Just it.
He is actually a very similar character to the Kingpin, especially in the Daredevil comics, where he's kind of less directly involved, like he is with Spider-Man, and more he's kind of behind the scenes, and you kind of eventually figure out that all roads lead to Kingpin, which is kind of more fitting to his namesake than a lot of his appearances in Spider-Man.
Yeah, but
because in Spider-Man, Kingpin just kind of shows up from time to time, and it's just like, well, why is he called Kingpin? And then you realize he's also a Daredevil character, and he's in that case he kind of is, because he's kind of this. Daredevil's more of the Batman type, where he's a detective,
of course,
just kind of pulling threads and figuring out why things are going on and who's behind it until they find it.
Of course, and that makes sense.
Spider-Man just kind of swings around the city doing stuff until somebody shows up on his radar.
He just kind of bumps into things.
Yeah, he just kind of like bumps around doing Spider-Man stuff until something shows up on his radar, and then he goes and takes care of it.
And that makes sense because Daredevil's power is he got super senses, like super eyesight. That's how it's going.
So, and he's also a lawyer, so
it makes sense for him.
He's used to pulling out things that don't make sense and connecting
threads together. Yeah, so it makes sense for him to be more of a detective, while Spider-Man just.
But no, he is a very similar type of character to Johan, but I think Johan's far more sinister than Kingpin.
Of course.
Kingpin basically
has morality. Yeah, but Kingpin still has morality. He still has humanity, though.
Yeah, and he's after greed, but like that's the thing is, I think Nina, they never destroyed her humanity, whereas Johan, they broke him entirely. Like he is not human. Like he's called human, but he's not one.
On the inside, at least. So I mean,
Yeah, I'd say inside he is not anywhere near what someone would call a functional human being. And yet from the outside he's completely fine and very normal.
Yeah, he's actually a pretty boy. So
and everyone kind of likes him, and he uses his looks to his advantage. And no, I mean, it was just such a well written series, and this is one of those series where everything is done right. The characters are great, the story arcs make sense and kind of progress in a very interesting way, so the audience can never really guess what's going to happen before it does. And the art's fantastic, the music is fairly good.
No, just wait till you hear them soundtrack of Made in Abyss.
I was gonna say the music's pretty good, and in a very dark and minimalist way, where it's never over the top and like doom and gloom and like the
Batman that just came out.
Oh God, that fucking don't get me started on that fucking soundtrack. We'll be here all day.
Yeah, was it 2 tracks?
It's literally 2 notes.
2 notes. 2 notes, and then and then
you just play it on different instruments.
Okay, so
and it's not even like 2 notes that are far apart and like fairly hard to do. It's literally 1 octave apart.
Okay,
so it's just like
most basic theme song ever.
It's even more basic than like the most basic riff I learned to play when I first learned to play guitar. And the first song I ever learned to play on guitar was Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath, which if you look up the main riff, you will absolutely laugh your ass off at how easy this is to play. It's literally 3 notes, one of which is a bend for one of them, like for one of the repetitions, or not a bend, but a hammer-on, which is basically instead of doing like say my fingers are on the guitar strings, you'll have your main like say this my ring finger will be holding the actual fret I'm playing, and then instead of picking the string, I'll be playing the string with the pinky finger. Okay. And basically making a smaller vibration, and that creates like a warbling effect. So it's hard to demonstrate without an electric guitar, because you can really only do that with an electric and have it sound very good. Or at least that's the only time I've seen that technique used to its fullest extent. But it's literally like you don't even move your hand for the entire riff. So it's just like, wow, this is like the most low effort music I've ever seen.
Yeah. So I know that's why this anime wowed me when I first saw it.
Because the music is minimalist and sinister, but done very well, composed very well, I'll say. And it's not over the top like some anime, like trying to figure out, but especially where like the villains tend to have like that organ music, like the very like dark organ music that kind of goes over them. It's like, okay, this is the bad guy, and you don't get that here.
The reason why this anime it was so good that it wowed me, and I'm actually a little disappointed because this one when I started getting into anime around 2019.
Okay.
Early 2019, like January around that year. So, and this was so good that good. I watched a lot of good stuff really early on. So.
That is kind of the disappointing part with some of the animes, especially if you go back and watch some of the earlier ones, is a lot of the really good stuff in the genre happens early on. And then a lot of it gets derived off of that and kind of becomes not stereotypical, but like it kind of derives into it.
It's the fact that I watch a lot of good stuff or really good stuff early on. So some anime can seem a little disappointing. Well,
yeah, and especially when you watch something of this caliber, which in terms of storytelling, especially nothing in the West has been made that's anywhere near this good in a long time. And it actually has kind of a noir feel to it.
Almost, but the main character is not depressed or not.
Well, I mean, that's not a noir element. That can be the case, but It does have some of the noir elements to it. It doesn't have especially the black and white animation or the very dark lighting to it, which is kind of what makes film noir what it is. But it does have a lot of the detective story and kind of really a character who's just generally a guy doing a job falling into something he has no idea what he's getting into about. So it does have some elements of that, and I think, like you say, it kind of is a bad bellwether to judge other shows against because it was made in a different time.
No. Even anime that made in similar time to this is might fall. This is probably better than that. I mean, I watched Death Note after this, and then I didn't hate Death Note, but I didn't enjoy.
Death Note's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad.
I know. Did you watch Death Note, by the way, or?
Yeah, I watched Death Note on Adult Swim and stuff like that, where it's good.
It wasn't amazing though.
Yeah, it's good, but it never grabbed me.
This actually did.
Yeah, this was like I watched the first like 2-3 episodes, and I'm like I was watching that and Made in Abyss in between Strange New Worlds and a couple other shows. So when I wasn't, doing lots of research for Rock and Roll Religion, which for those of you who aren't aware is my show that I do Sundays. Which it's like it's funny, like I kind of made my own prison a little way because I have a lot of new stuff that's coming out that I want to listen to, but I have to spend time listening to all this other stuff because that's the stuff I need to actually do a show on. But that's neither here nor there. And then Monster, I was kind of like doing an episode or two here or there when I had time in between stuff like that, and then I got to like I think episode 5 or 6. And the story really started picking up. I'm like, okay, this thing is really starting to okay, this is really grabbing me. And then you really go down the rabbit hole. And the more episodes you watch and the closer you get to the end, the more you want to finish it.
The show I watched, I think I watched immediately after Monster was when almost not I think it was immediately after another show was Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood,
which is another great one.
Another great one. I think that's a great one too.
That's another one of the all-time classics.
Right after Monster.
And I would put a lot of the 90s anime shows in there, like Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, Outlaw Star for me, Rurouni Kenshin.
I still gotta watch Trigun. I gotta watch Trigun. I check out Trigun.
Trigun's cool. The original Trigun's cool. Have you seen the art for the new one?
Yeah, CGI and
it's fucking awful. It's just like, no, please. It's like, please don't ruin Trigun. You've already. It's like somebody already tried to ruin Cowboy Bebop and failed miserably. Because nobody I know who watched Cowboy Bebop actually watched that show.
I mean, no live action anime adaptations for me. I mean, they're all horrible.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that just don't translate well into other genres.
Into live action, you can't translate that into live action. Like, no, it's just better just being a cartoon. Of course.
It's just like, and the one thing that they actually did right in the Cowboy Bebop cartoon is the one thing that everyone wished that they wouldn't, which was Ed.
No. Let me finish. Now, by the way, we're going. I also watched a Race. That's another good mystery anime. Well, unique concept.
Okay.
Involves time travel. Basically, this guy has a condition where whenever something happens, he gets sent back in time to stop bad things happening, and he can't control it. It just always happens. And he has to solve these murders of children from a serial killer who's obviously based off the real life serial killer Satomu Miyazaki. I mean, same body count, same MO for his children.
Now that's a little bit different in terms of the exact content, but there was actually a show that was on when I was a kid in the early 90s called Early Edition, which was a live action show that was actually really good. There's a very interesting concept where basically this guy who just ran a bar all of a sudden started getting tomorrow's copy of the paper. Yes, this is back in the day when people actually still read newspapers.
I know.
And it's actually a really interesting concept because, like, he would read about these bad things happening and then try to go fix it,
stop them.
And he would, and like, you know, he could start telling if he was doing good or bad because of the headline would change. And it was actually a really interesting show. It ran for like a couple seasons, I think.
No, that sounds like a cool concept.
Yeah. And it wasn't a big hit, so it's probably out on the internet somewhere. I checked BitChute and a couple other places because it was actually a really interesting concept for a show. And the 90s had a lot of that, of interesting either sci-fi or just odd scenario shows like that where and he never uses it for his own gain, and even though his friend always tries to get him to, like, he could win tomorrow's lotto because the lottery numbers are published, but he never uses it for his own gain, and that's his rule.
Another interesting anime I watched, it didn't never got a second season, called Dead Man in Wonderland, which had one season and unfinished story. It failed over in Japan, so they didn't make a second season.
Sure.
Where some little kid's entire classroom gets murdered by a superpowered being, and he gets framed for the murder and placed in jail, in prison, and it's a death game.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a lot of anime I watched early on, like.
Yeah, it's not the most. It's not like, you know, the popular stuff everyone's talking about. It's the stuff that kind of fell by the way. So like Monster, I'd heard of in passing. I just never seen it. And some of this other stuff I'd never even heard of.
Yeah, because
I like kind of cruise the surface of that genre, and then I never dug down.
Exactly. That's why people like me need people like me recommending this type of stuff, because
and that's honestly why I do my show too. Is I dig down into like the origins of heavy metal and rock and roll and some of the bands that
because
made it
because a lot of popular anime I do not like for example, ever heard of Madoka Magica?
I've heard the name. I couldn't probably place it.
It's a very popular, famous anime. It was not very good. I mean, from my opinion, I don't know about yours, and you didn't see it yet.
Well, I mean,
it was not very good.
When I say I skimmed the top of anime, like when I started in it, like, you know, the animes of the time were things like Gundam Wing, freaking
that's
like that stuff. Because
I was just born yet.
Because I was watching it on Toonami after school.
Oh, I was just born on that time. Oh, I was just a little toddler.
Yeah, so you would have been too young for it. Like, I actually remember when the original Dragon Ball was on Saturday morning cartoons.
I saw reruns that my brother loves Dragon Ball Z.
But this is this was the original Dragon Ball, and this was when it first came to the US in like 92, 93.
My brother was just born yet. My brother was just born.
Yeah, so like this was I was probably 6.
Okay.
But I remember watching it, and I never remembered the series all that much until Dragon Ball Z came out on Toonami.
Of course, I'm like, "Word by storm."
Yeah, and then I'm like, wait a minute, that's that kid from that show I used to watch when I was young.
But but he's grown up now. He has a son.
Yeah. But like I started remembering the names of the characters, and, you know, obviously the model, like the character designs look similar and stuff like that. I'm like, this is him all grown up. That's cool.
Oh yeah. Dragon Ball Z is of course a good show. I mean, like
it's become a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about an anime that came out in 2011 that's really famous that I didn't personally enjoy. In my opinion, I didn't think it was good. I thought it was bad, but a lot of people say it was amazing. It's called Madoka Magica. I can't pronounce the full name. It's a long title.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing as most animes, where it has a catchy title and is just like everything else is like, yeah, I'm not even going to try that.
No, it's untranslated too, by the way. So, even though it has an English dub, that was just weird. But no, but the thing is, the show was supposed to be a deconstruction of magical girls. You know that, you're familiar with that genre, right?
Yeah. Kind of like the Sailor Moon concept.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a deconstruction of that, but messed up, dark and twisted. But
even the original Sailor Moon, which was on TV when I was a kid, was kind of dark at some points.
yeah, but they try to make a dark and twisted parody of that, kind of like Watchmen. But
Okay, so kind of like comparing Justice League to Watchmen.
yeah, they try to do that, but it didn't. For me personally, the story was bad, and the reason for it was the the story was the story is it clearly more focuses on verting cliches than actually telling a good story for me, because they kind of dropped a lot of plot points once it done subverting the
Well,
cliche.
it's the same thing as the superhero genre and Star Wars especially, but a lot of sci-fi is now where, and you'll hear Drinker talk about it all the time, where like all of this deconstruction nonsense and stuff like that is not good storytelling.
No, no, yeah. The thing is, they still kind of drop plot points once they dump subverting the cliche. Like they you tell the writer was never interested. They just want to subvert the cliche.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing with Star Wars and Star Trek, where they wanted to subvert what that show was. And unfortunately, the things they're trying to subvert are the things that made that show endearing to people and things that made the show enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah. In the case of Madoka Magica, they subverted the cliches that have they had a lot. There's a lot of cliches that built up on Magical Girl, the genre itself.
And we saw
But
this we actually saw this with heavy metal in the 90s, where we went from 80s heavy metal, where it's, very loud, very bombastic. The guitars are absolutely off the chain. Like if you didn't have a killer guitarist doing solos in the 80s,
mm,
you were a nobody. And then you got into the 90s and you had all of these bands coming out that were very lower tune, like down paced, lower
mm,
tuned. Apparently forgot what a freaking guitar solo was after like 1992.
like
And
even I know what guitar solo is. I don't even listen to
yeah,
metal. It's kind of obvious.
yeah, and like some of the bands I grew up with, like Korn and freaking Slipknot and stuff like that, where it's just like kind of changed the sound a lot of ways, and a lot of people were just like, "This is not what I'm here for,"
Mm, mm,
and it stopped being fun.
mm, no,
And I mean, there were genres that did come up in the 90s that turned into good things, like a lot of the groove and industrial side with like Rammstein, Machine Head, stuff like that. Like, even if you don't listen to metal, I guarantee you know who Rammstein is.
I've heard of the name, but I never listened to any of the stuff.
They're actually a very good band. I like it. I like it because it's very, very pounding, very brutal, and that's kind of industrial metal in a heartbeat.
Oh
Is
yeah.
it just has that kind of pounding beat to it.
Mm,
Um, but then you also had like the rise of extreme metal, like because like the mainstream heavy and thrash bands were gone or went underground to a certain extent. Like you had guys
mhm,
like Ronnie James Dio, who
mhm,
was one of like the biggest
mhm,
names in metal playing in clubs.
mm,
Um, and then you had the rise of things like death metal and stuff like that in the 90s, and it was very different and dark, but in my opinion, it's nowhere near as good.
mhm.
But you'll find people who are huge fans of it, and I don't begrudge them that. Like some of the musicianship is talented, and certain death metal bands I can get around that with. Like there are certain things it fits with. Like the vocal style is really the difference there.
Mm.
But it's the same thing with anime. Like the styles change over time, and like
It comes,
it goes from being fun and like being artistic to
no,
like
no,
we're
the
going to be
change
as
kind of
dark
happened in
and brutal as
2006.
possible.
No, 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 no. Okay, let me explain this. Change kind of happened in 2006 when anime started come more generic size. We got the generic anime like after Bleach.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bleach was one of the ones where they got real popular here because
no,
everybody I knew about that show. That
yeah, but
Naruto.
I never watched Bleach, but I watched. Of course, I saw Naruto as a kid,
Well, yeah, because that was more of a kid's show, whereas Bleach
no,
was more designed for like the adult side of things.
no, but here's the thing. Well, no, Bleach made more generic size, but now since now a bunch after that bunch we got a bunch of anime set in high school about some teenage boy meeting some supernatural power girl.
That was the first
And,
time I ever saw that, and then every show I saw, actually Inuyasha had that same thing to a certain extent,
mm,
but after
after Bleach,
after
every
Bleach,
show.
every damn show, the main character was this high school boy who runs into this magical thing, and it's just like, oh god, here we go again.
No, no, no. And then. But anyways, Madoka Magica has all female cast. No, Madoka Magica, I'm talking about. It tries to subvert the cliches of magical girls, and keep in mind, I ain't not like the magical genre from to begin with from the jump because I tried watching called Captain Sakura. Even as a kids show, is not
Well,
really that
that
good.
even that was a derivative of Sailor Moon.
Yeah, I mean, even as a kids show, called Captain Sakura isn't really that good. I mean, I've seen other kids anime better than
Well,
this. Like,
it's no different than Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh.
no, no,
Pokemon caught
no,
on really hot, so Yu-Gi-Oh had to come by
no.
and
Yu-Gi-Oh is actually
kind of
inspired by something else entirely.
is it?
Yeah, it's inspired by Magic Gathering. Originally started off as
Well, Magic the Gathering and Pokemon started off very similar times.
yeah, exactly. But Yu-Gi-Oh was inspired by Magic the Gathering. If you don't know.
Well, the card game was, but the
No,
show I think is
the actual show was
the
inspired. The actual
was it?
manga was
Okay.
inspired by Magic.
All right.
No, but even it did start off as a world card game. It actually started off as kind of a Hellraiser thing, but then it turned into Magic Gathering.
Because Pokemon had an interesting adaptation where like it started out as a video game
Mm-hmm.
by Nintendo and then turned into a cartoon
Anime,
and
yeah,
then
anime.
turned into this massive multimedia empire because every kid in the US fucking fell in love with it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Myself included. I wish I still had it around here.
Of course, Nintendo still pumps out Pokemon games every couple of years.
Oh, of course. And like the kids my age, like we stopped counting 2 generations, like after like the second generation of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you've ever even seen one. I had a Game Boy. I used to have a Game Boy Color.
Never had one. I think
it was like what the original Game Boy looks like, the giant gray brick. Yeah. This was basically that, but slimmer, and it actually had a color screen.
Because technology improved.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it wasn't just the technology improved; it also ran on only 2 AA's rather than 8. Exactly. But you'll get a kick out of this. The original Game Boy ran on like 8 AA's, and it would run for like 3 hours. It was hilarious. But these things were built like a tank. One actually did get hit by an airstrike in the Gulf War.
Mm-hmm.
And that one's actually in Nintendo's company headquarters now, I think still. And like the case is all burned to shit, but it actually still turns on.
Yeah, that's because Nintendo makes their products sturdy.
Well, and back in the 90s, shit was made different. These things were made to take a punch, like the old Nokia brick phones. Those came out in like 2002, and good luck breaking one.
Yeah, same thing. The Wii actually.
The Wii is actually surprisingly robust, although you might throw your do what my buddy did and forget he wasn't wearing his wrist strap and throw his controller into his TV. That was within like 6 months after the Wii came out. This was before people really got used to it, but it was still hilarious.
Okay, but I ain't like his name. His name. We call Captain Sakura. I'll challenge you to watch the second Double Dab or the original subversion or second Double Dab because it was boring as hell. Because
I saw it as a kid and it just held no interest in me.
No,
like Sailor Moon. I never even really cared all that much about, and then this is basically that, but carbon copied.
No. Well, in the case of Call Captain Sakura, we got. Here's the thing: every episode is an overly long fight scene against a monster that doesn't have no personality. But that's every episode of the show. So we're not actually fighting villains. We're fighting no-name monsters. Look, imagine if, and that's kind of the problem with most magic girl anime that came after.
And especially at the time, it was competing against things like Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, and the Superman.
No, even Dragon Ball Z is better than this because.
But even at that point, like it was competing directly in the same time slots,
exactly,
or on the same network with Superman, Batman the Animated Series, and Batman Beyond. And those villains were much more interesting, much better written, and everyone's like, "Why am I watching this trash?"
No, I mean Dragon Ball Z.
Give me more Superman.
On Dragon Ball Z, imagine fighting. Imagine if they fought no-name villain, no-name antagonist with no goals or motivation every episode.
Yeah, pretty much.
Would Dragon Ball Z would have that taken off?
Hell no! It would have been
exactly.
Get out of here.
we gotta fight something interesting, but Magic Girls don't.
Like
the monsters they fight are just these vague shapes, and they don't speak and they don't have goals.
That's one of the things. One of the reasons I think you'll really like Rurouni Kenshin.
Mm. Oh, I heard the creator of had CP
I don't know about
actual
any of that. Like,
actual. The creator that had actual real CP, and
I don't know about any of that side of it. I just know the anime that I
Mhm.
watched, and it's a great show.
Okay, Samurai Show. I heard.
Yes,
Okay, I'm gonna check it out. Um, look.
and
But
the art style is beautiful. I love it,
okay,
especially especially when they start showing the swords and everything and how they're lit and
okay,
animated. Oh, it's great.
okay. Mm, yeah. You follow Shadowversity, by the way, or
Yeah, I am a big fan of Shad.
okay?
I've been following him for probably 3 4 years now because I'm a huge
Yeah,
history nerd, and he talks
yeah.
about like
I
swords
started
and
watching him for his Fantasy Realm series because years ago. That's years ago because I'm kind of have some fancy things going on my writing. So
yeah. And if you're a fantasy writer, you almost have to follow him because he
exactly
will
because
lay it right
you
out
know
for you and what you can and cannot do.
yeah because I thought making a fantasy one of my fantasy worlds has uh giant trolls and ogres in the setting, and I decided to give them Seifs as weapons because I watched one of his videos about giants, and it makes sense because they taller than humans,
Yeah.
so having like so that'd be perfect weapons for them fighting against humans.
Well, and I love what he. I did. I've seen a couple of his fantasy rearm shows, especially the one on the chainsword from 40K,
Mhm.
because it seems really impractical. And he was like, and I love how he doesn't just immediately like go to the surface level and be like, "All right, this thing is fucking stupid, moving on."
Mm,
He kind of like tries to justify it in certain fantasy situations, and in the case
mm.
of the Space Marines, it makes sense because they would have the actual strength to use that thing,
Yeah,
correct?
of course, since they have super strength. Um,
Whereas a normal human, it would be like this, like people hurt themselves trying to do this all the time with chainsaws.
Yeah. Always taking account supreme strength in regards to some weapons and who was designed for in regards to things like aliens because I also got weird aliens in my account as well.
Oh yeah.
Um. So I
In that
always
case, I'd
yeah.
also look into 40K a little bit,
Mhm.
and also Warhammer, the old Warhammer fantasy lore.
Yeah. I never got into Warhammer 40K lore. You know why? It just I felt it's too bleak
Oh, it's
uh
very dark, but
because
you can,
re-
but you'll also
I
get some interesting ideas out of it.
in terms of lore, I'm a bit more interested in Dungeons and Dragons lore uh because one is not as bleak, so and two it actually affects the gameplay itself. Since imagine you're doing a
Yeah,
role playing session and we can bring a bunch of ideas from the lore into the game itself.
yeah, which is one of the reasons I'm into BattleTech so much. Is it's a very realistic world in
Mm,
that the motivations and how things kind of play out throughout most of the
mm.
lore makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
And a lot of these, especially if you're into lore videos, watch Tex Talks BattleTech.
Mm,
You will absolutely adore some of his videos because he not only goes
okay.
into like the mech itself, he goes into like the socio-political reasons why this thing exists,
Mm,
like where the Innisphere was, what the predecessors to it was, what the thought process was
mm.
going into the design, and then how it ended up.
I think I once brought up Mr. Rex. Have you seen that?
Yes, I've seen his videos. He's great. I love him.
I know exactly. Exactly.
Like for D&D, like he's like one of my go-tos for D&D stuff.
Have you heard about it from me, right? Or what was some new before him?
I think I'd run into him a couple of times, but like you reminded me of him, and I've been watching more of his stuff since.
Oh, yeah, I watched. Yeah. That's where I get a lot of stuff from. He's amazing. Like when it comes to D&D lore videos, like
He's really good. For 40K lore, if you're looking for somewhat sarcastic, I would go with Arch.
okay,
If you're looking for actual, just informative, and occasionally makes a joke,
mm,
I would go with Luton.
okay,
Luton,
I was going to
Luton 09, because he does a
look
lot
on
of
that.
very, very informative videos. They're very long form though. Like a lot of this is like 40 minutes to an hour.
Okay, got it.
And then
I'll check out him if I want to know more about Warhammer 40K stuff.
and then
Uh,
Major Kill is a lot more funny and kind of comedic and is very much shorter, but doesn't go into anywhere near as much detail.
wait. Okay. Can you Google wait one thing to say? Can you Google up Noka Magica while I'm talking? I gotta explain this thing to you. It's
Yeah,
designed to
Just split it. Just spread it out. Spell it out in the.
Just M. Okay. It's designed to be a dark and twisted magic girl show, but I personally like it because it just kind of subvert the cliches, but they didn't actually, but they kind of drop the plot points. Like once we, so that's how I felt.
There we go. I've seen it. I got it now.
You've seen the show itself? Oh
no, I'm looking up the art now, dude. Just the art style would have sent me fucking off. Just like nah.
No, it's a dark twisted horror show with cutesy art style, but
yeah, I know, but just that cutesy art style would have been like, yeah, I'm good.
Okay, but I didn't like the story because, like I said, it's dark, depressing, but it doesn't really. Like the main character of the show, Metalicus, she doesn't do anything until the last couple episodes.
That's another point against it, is when the protagonist is basically just along for the ride for most of it.
Yeah, she doesn't do anything at all, and then and most of the story is about another girl, which I'm not confused. Why is she the main character then?
But a lot of anime has this habit too of like using like this really cutesy art style and trying to do really like weird shit with it, and it doesn't work in a lot of cases. And some video games do try to do this. This is one of the reasons I catch a lot of flack for this, but I am not a fan of Borderlands at all. I don't like the art style, and it just took me right out of it.
Okay, I found the art style of Borderlands. I mean, I know.
So you see what I'm saying with it. It was just like the art style just takes you right out of it from minute one. And
it looks like a comic book or something.
Yeah, and it's not that kind of game. Like the Telltale games with the cell shading actually makes sense because it's basically taken from the comics, and you're playing through a comic book. And the Telltale Batman game is actually pretty good. But
same thing in Walking Dead. Since that's also based off a comic book TV show.
Yeah, that was the first one. That was the first Telltale game I actually ever played. Was the first Walking Dead.
It makes sense. So it
makes sense for that, and it makes sense for that kind of game. And there's another one that just came out. This thing is, I don't know if you're a fan of the old samurai movies at all.
No.
The old, these are basically the movies that all of the Clint Eastwood westerns are based on. There's Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai and things like that. There's a game called Trek to Yomi that just came out that is basically in that art style.
What?
And it's fucking amazing.
Wait. In art style of what? Telltale?
Of like a 50s samurai movie.
Oh, that makes sense. And
it's fucking glorious. I love it.
No, that actually makes sense though.
Yeah, and like I would heavily recommend you at least look up some gameplay on like YouTube or Twitch, and the art style. This guy had to have been a fan of Kurosawa's work.
Okay, got it.
Because it's too perfect not to be.
Okay, but no. Main problem with that show is like the main character doesn't do anything for most of the show, and the show spends most of the time on this weird plot about the side girl, and then she dies, and then like what? And then, like, but like okay, I'm confused. Like the main what's it's like it's just designed to be depressing, but that's it. Like what was?
Yeah, and I love it when they do that with a character that nobody cares about.
Oh, did that happen? That happened in the third episode. What's the turning point of the show? I mean, they introduced the character just to die.
Oh, they don't. Yeah, like this person's dead, and you're like, cool.
Wait, that happened in the third episode of the show, Madoka Magica. Oh, they introduced this character just to die. I'm like,
now old school Star Trek is famous for that, but they don't introduce the character to you. It's just a random ensign or something that's on the same away team.
Character a name and speaking role, and they introduce her at the start of the episode, and she dies.
Like the character will have a name and maybe get one or two lines, but they'll die before the first commercial break.
No,
like this is like a random person.
Makes it like it's a big thing though. Let's still try to make it like it's a big thing. Like, wait, huh? I'm like, she gets killed fighting a nameless monster, and okay, and this supposed to be shocking me. How I didn't feel anything because I don't know who his character is.
And it's kind of that newbie syndrome where vets don't like to talk about it much, but like we don't get too close to the new guys, just in case something happens to them, and we're just like, oh, shit, because you don't know them, you don't get used to them.
Yeah,
if they're there for 10 minutes and then they're gone, well, shit.
Yeah, one show does it. One show that has a QT art style but doesn't write is, of course, Made Abyss, which
that is an interesting art style, and that does have that bright aesthetic. I'm looking forward to that changing though, because that seems like the kind of show that, like, as they go further down, they're going that's going to change a lot.
It does. It gets darker, especially the content,
and that I can really get behind. You know, when things start really bright and sunny, and then they get into the story, and things start going a different way, because it's at least matching the tone. But here you have like a really cutesy art style that like looks like it's designed for like 10-year-old girls, and they're probably talking about some pretty dark shit, if I know anime. Because like usually the more cutesy and light they try to make the characters, the worse it's gonna get.
In terms of content. But I'm like, okay, but that's that like there's some anime I just didn't get into. Like I got into My Hero Academia. You heard of that?
Yep. I've heard of it. But so many people have like recommended it, and people I don't trust have recommended it, so I'm just like, I'm staying the fuck away from it.
I got into My Hero Academia. I was with it for the first 2 seasons, and partway through season 3, I just kind of got bored and stopped. Yeah.
Because I heard about it right about the same time as like everyone was getting excited about Umbrella Academy.
No, it's kind of like the X-Men, the concept of My Academia is kind of like the X, but it's a world,
but like X-Men back when it was good, not like it's
here's the thing. It's the other way around. In this world, almost everybody has superpowers except a couple people, and people who born without powers are seen as freaks.
Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting kind of flipping it on its head.
But they don't do anything with that concept though. They just the main character does get powers and very early on. He starts normal human, one of the few normal humans left, and then he does get powers from another character. But he's the only person who had to earn his powers. So he's the only person in the world to had to earn his powers. And with Demon Slayer, I did not like. I mean, I saw the first season of that, I didn't bother continue
the anime or the manga, because I hear people rave about the manga all the time.
The anime.
Okay.
No, because the thing with Demon Slayer is that it went into this weird direction. Like it started out first 2-3 episodes started out kind of good, but then went in a weird direction.
So you can kind of see it like, oh yeah, this is Demon Slayer, only not like you remember it. Like,
no. The thing is, okay, it has an interesting hook. The hook is interesting, but the way they decided to go with that is like, because the hook is that it's set in 1920s, I think 20s. The main character gets turned to a demon, and they turn to a demon. Well, what's these basically vampires, but the show doesn't call them that. Because they burn in sunlight. They eat people to survive. The burn sun, okay, and the immortal, okay, the vampires essentially, and again, only kill them is you chop the head off or stab him in the heart. So
so it's a vampire.
Yeah, it's a vampire. They just don't call him that. And the main character gets turned into a demon, and they're themed around blood too, so it's pretty much vampires.
After I got into 40K, anything that you tries to use demons as a scare tactic just doesn't work anymore, because no one goes as fucking extra with demons as 40K does.
Okay, but they call them demons, but they're really just vampires. You can just tell. But anyways, his sister gets turned to a demon, and then there's this corpse called the Demon Slayer Corpse, which the same. There's a group of elite samurai hunt demons, secret samurai hunt demons organization. But the thing is,
interesting premise, almost like the Dawn Guard in Skyrim.
I know, but the thing is, the main character just joins them. Like even though they wanted to kill sister at first, but he just joins them. and then he trains to become a samurai, even though he know the demon who killed his family is still out there, and he doesn't. The trail goes cold, and he just lets the trail, and his
But he
sister's
just
still a demon.
lets it happen.
Yeah, he just lets it happen, and his sister is still a demon, and that's gonna be okay. And
And they don't move in that direction. Like, this is the thing with Monster is like, you start off with that kind of similar setup, but then Tenma starts working towards figuring out all this and trying to solve the problem and trying to figure out what's going on.
Instead, he
and
spends
starts
2 years
down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, instead the main character spends 2 years training to be a demon slayer. Like, okay, why?
Yeah, and let's face it, the 80s movies did this better. If you're gonna do that so you learn how to fight demons and stuff like that, do it in a 10-minute montage.
No, or in the case of, but his sister has superpowers, and is a demon, has superpowers. So why? And his sister is most trying to control it. So why does he just have his sister do all the fighting? I'm like, wait, I mean, I'm kind of. This doesn't make any sense. But I won't think about it. This doesn't make any sense. Why does his sister
and also joined an organization that would pretty much kill her instantly?
But they don't.
Yeah, but they just magically don't because you're one of them. It's like, oh yeah, she's cool. She's with you.
Like and it's supposed to be about the brother Cicely Bond, but she's barely on screen most of the time because she's in the box because demons burn in sunlight. So she got to be in his backpack when they're in the daytime. But the thing is, the most of the fights is at night. So why she is just immediately coming out the backpack?
So she's basically just there to make him look dumb and
no, she's basically just there to give him motivation. Give him motivation while he does all the fighting. Give him the motivation. He's or as a plot device, when
I really hate when things are recurring in a series. Like when just there to move the plot.
Like when he might not want to fight. Oh, now she come out the backpack now. Okay, what? Like what? Like she could came out as soon as the sun went down. But I'm like, I was cool.
That's like, yeah, that's not great.
I was like, I did not enjoy Demon Slayer that much.
And that's the kind of show like you'll get like 2-3 episodes in and be like, why am I watching this? Like I can just walk away right now and not.
Yeah, I mean, I suggest you try for yourself, but
I had the same feeling watching Star Trek Discovery for the first time because I'm a Star Trek nerd. I always have been. I think I've been on your streams before wearing a Starfleet Academy t-shirt. And I loved every series. I even watched the first 2 JJ movies because the first one was at least not entirely terrible.
It was okay. The first one was kind of okay. It kind of made Star Trek and Star Wars, but it was just okay.
Yeah, like that was kind of like a generic space action laser show that was not really Star Trek, but the cast at least did a good job. So I was
and then the sequel came out, and I'm like, oh god.
And they ruined the best villain.
Khan Benedict,
like TOS era Star Trek ever had.
Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch as Khan,
and the way they used him as Khan was just like, and I was just like, all right, I'm done with that.
Yeah,
but then they were like, hey, it's prime timeline. It's not the JJ verse. I'm like, okay.
Then they made Discovery, which just woke.
But we didn't know that when it first came out. I had an inkling, but I was just like, you know what? I'll give it a couple of episodes and see how it goes. And like after like 2-3 episodes of it, I'm just like sitting there like, this show's not going to get any better, is it? Like this is just what it's going to be. And like I had my issues with the first episode of Strange New Worlds, but there was enough promise there and enough potential there that I'm like, all right, let's see where they go with this. And they went in that direction, which was good. Discovery went right down the rabbit hole of just where that show initially started and just continued going.
Yeah, everybody knows. I mean, everybody's seen Doomcock videos on it.
And I'm just like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
After like 3 episodes, I was just like, nope.
Yeah, everybody's seen Doomcock videos on it.
I was like, I can't be bothered to watch this fucking show anymore.
Yeah,
like I have better things to do.
Doomcock videos, so.
And like when it comes to Star Trek, like that's bad news. When I would rather either go watch old reruns of older shows, or like go play a game I've played like 15 times before, than watch the new episode of Discovery or any Star Trek show. And Strange New Worlds, I was actually like, I haven't watched the last. I haven't really enjoyed the last 2 episodes, but I've actually been looking forward to watching it every Thursday because it was actually fun TV again. Not perfect Star Trek, mind you. I have plenty of nitpicks and lore issues and stuff like that, but it was at least felt like Star Trek again, which was nice to see for at least a while. We'll see if it continues that. And I did like in the last episode that they brought back the Wrath of Khan era uniforms because it's kind of a flashback to the future, or it's kind of a flash forward. And you see Christopher Pike instead of Jim Kirk wearing that red Admiral's uniform from the motion picture era, which I thought was really cool because I always loved that uniform. Everything about the motion picture era, I just adore. But that was one of those like, there's how you do it right, and the same people. Akiva Goldsman's still in charge of it, and so is Alex Kurtzman. And now you do it wrong.
But why is Star Trek Strange New Worlds better than Discovery? I don't know why did it turn out this way?
Because I think they've already had 4 failing seasons of Discovery where no one was watching it, and everyone was fucking shitting all over it, and it really divided the fan base. And then and Picard was even worse because the ratings after the first episode started tanking because they insulted basically everything that Star Trek stood for in the first fucking episode of that show. So most of the fans like me were like, I'm done. I didn't even make it all the way through the first episode. I'm like, I'm out. If I keep watching the show, I'm going to fucking hurt someone. Probably my TV. And then Strange New Worlds, it looked enough like Trek. They promised they were going back to the episodic format. More TOS looking, more TOS feeling. It was going to be about the Enterprise under Captain Pike and have some, familiar territory that we're looking at. So I think me and a lot of other fans were like, they're at least saying the right things. I'll at least give it a shot.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna put Trigon on my the watch list along with One Punch Man and
One Punch Man's great.
And Dot Hack, some Dot Hack anime.
Dot Hack is interesting. The first Dot Hack.
What's the first one was called? What?
I think it was Dot Hat Sign.
Okay, Dot Hack Sign. Got it.
And okay, that was interesting. And if you've never seen Ghost in the Shell, I would do that.
Okay, got it. Because if you don't know, there's an anime that came out in 2012 called that was terrible, and everybody realized that in hindsight, apparently, called Sword Art Online.
Oh God, I remember that one.
No,
I watched the first episode and noped the hell out.
Yeah, that show was really bad. Apparently, it caused this entire anime boom called Isekai anime, where we got, it's just overpowered main characters in generic fantasy worlds. But
yeah, I got through one episode that I'm just like, yeah.
The thing was the Sword Art Online was that it decided to be a romance story that takes place inside a video game, and the plot makes no sense, by the way. I mean, like the entire plot makes no sense because we got it's set in the future year of 2022 this year.
The future year of 2022.
Okay,
welcome to the future.
In which they had VR helmets and it's this VR video game called Sword Art Online, which was an RPG MMO RPG that has no magic. Which is poor. They say it would be this would be a poorly designed video game. Like if this actually existed, this would be a poorly designed video game. Like RPG, no magic, so it's just sword fighting, but no ranged weapons. How do you fight?
Sounds like a shittier version of Star Ocean, but an MMO.
Yeah, and we got big strong the damage sponge boss monsters in a game with no range attacks.
So it's a shitty JRPG like Star Ocean, or the later Star Ocean games anyway.
Yeah, and as a game,
but as an MMO. So we've got Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah, Yeah, essentially,
multiplayer
but
Final Fantasy 13.
yeah, essentially, because if people say if this game existed in real life, it would be terrible ass game. But
It does. It's called Final Fantasy 13. I played through the first hour of it and then left forever.
Yeah, so we got that, and okay. It says it's a set time MMO. The plot makes no sense because if this happened in real life, this would be the biggest hostage situation on the face of planet Earth. But they stay inside this game. But they get rushed to the hospital because they can't take the helmets off because they'll kill them if they try to take it off. So they put on life support. They stay in the game for 2 years. Ain't nobody stopped doing nothing in all this time. Like, wait, in real
Nobody figured the hell out or like tried to do something.
It's hundreds of people. Hundreds of people. In real life, this happened. This would be the largest hostage situations facing planet Earth and planet history. So either the government would do something about it, either the Japanese government did something about it, or even not the Japanese government, a regular hacker,
or the game developer.
No, the game developer was the bad guy.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Well, but the either a hacker would have done something about this.
So yeah, somebody would have tried to fucking fix it by then.
Yeah, they get free everybody, but nobody did. So the game developer was the bad guy. But and you trapped everybody in this game and then they stayed there for 2 years. I'm like, what? Wait, and then they have romance story, and they like what? And the main character is overpowered and beats everybody with no,
of course,
like no trial. I'm like, what? Okay, so you watched first episode of that when it came out?
I watched the first episode, and then I was just like, yeah, no, I'm all set.
Yeah, you can tell what touched you off from that.
Mostly the overpowered main character, and you could tell from the outset that was going to be how he was going to be the entire time. It wasn't going to be like he was going to beat the first couple instantly and then like kind of run into something his own size. It was just like this is going to be obnoxiously overpowered the entire time, isn't he?
Yeah,
now, but One Punch Man is kind of like that.
But that's the point.
But making fun of it.
Yeah, like, and they also making the story around it because he's bored and depressed.
Yeah, exactly. He's bored and depressed because nothing's a challenge. Like he's One Punch Man. I punch things and then they die and then I win.
Yeah, but
like that's just how this works now.
Yeah, but then again, if you don't know, reason why Sword Art Online is significant is because it caused a slew of ripoffs, and they're still going on to this day.
Just like anything that catches on in the mainstream does. Like there's always imitators.
No, so and it's taking up half of all anime coming out every year.
Oh no.
So
it's all just Sword Art Online ripoffs.
We got overpowered main characters in generic fantasy worlds that work exactly like a video game.
No, that's just depressing.
Yeah, I tried watching that time I got reincarnated as a slime, and halfway through the show, like no, I can't get
no.
Yeah, so because there's no challenge, like the villains die instantly, like what?
Yeah, it's just like, but like, and yet they want you to be excited about it.
Okay, what?
And like that's like I said, that's what One Punch Man does right. Is he's the exact opposite of most superheroes in that he doesn't have to figure out a way to beat the villain. He just beats the villain, but that actually makes him even worse and bored and depressed.
And
he's just and the story is about him, not about him beating the bad guy and how he deals with it.
But the story in the East anime is there no overarching story in most of these shows. Most time just they playing around the fantasy world and they engage in power fantasy, but that's it.
And that can work in certain eras and stuff like that. And
that was better as a video game.
Work. Star Trek is prime example of that, where but the premise of the show was also not only just telling moral lessons and stuff like that, but also just showing people the cool shit that's out there. That's probably out there and that we could go find and deal with it every week.
And that
would be cool being on a ship in Starfleet, and every week we're discovering a new planet that has some new and maybe dangerous but really interesting life form that may change our entire perception of things. Like the first episode of Next Generation, you run into Q. Who is one of the best? Who? That's the thing, is they never say he is and they never say he isn't.
Mm.
But he has, it's like the old Carl Sagan quote: "Any being with sufficiently advanced technology will be seen as a god by primitives."
Mm.
But he might as well be, for all intents and purposes, as he's written. And he's a really interesting character because he's basically a god that just fucks with Picard for his own amusement.
Yeah, it's like Mr. Spitlick.
Yeah, he's like, I'm basically omnipotent, and I just mess with people for my own amusement because I like to.
Yeah, you know who Mr. Spitlick is, right?
I think I'm
the Superman villain. Major Superman villain. He's exactly like that. He has got like powers, but he's messed like the place around Superman because he's bored.
Yeah, he's basically just like, yeah, I know I'm omnipotent, but I don't care. I just like messing with people because it's funny.
Okay, so
but that's Q, and he's one of the most brilliant Star Trek villains of all time because he's nothing they've ever run into before. And they have no idea what to do about it. And eventually, they basically have to give into him because they've got to find out if he's just out of their league.
Yeah, I'm going to end the stream soon, and right now. Hey, before you go.